Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sunday night, which means only one thing, another round of the Performance Link GT3 Cup. Tonight we are round number 6. We've done Format A, we've done Format B, and this is the first of 2 Format C endurance races throughout the season. And we're at the wonderful Spa for this tonight's escapades, should we say, for a 2-hour race. It's going to be an entertaining race. It's going to be epic for the drivers as well. I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of action on track. Obviously, last week we had the Nords where literally a third of the field did not complete that race, but tonight we're hoping for a few more finishers on a well-known track. My name is Andy Thompson. I am joined by David Whitehouse, and back in the production box we got the wonderful Lewis Arara. So Dave, welcome. It's going to be an entertaining race, 2 hours around Spa.
Yeah, it's going to be a great race evening, everybody. This is a real test for some of the drivers. Some of these guys and girls will not have done 2 hours in the car straight before. Most official races are an hour. If you do endurance races, official endurance races, you could be doing an hour, you could be doing 2 hours, depending on how your stints go. So this is a real test, knowing nobody else will jump in that car. It is all down to you and how you get on, and it's also one of the quickest tracks and most fearsome tracks in the world in Spa. You know, we've gone from Green Hell, which is probably the worst, to Spa, which really needs some commitment as you go around, especially in these GT cars. I've been informed Overush is flat with the setup we've got. Will the drivers be able to take it flat on full tanks? Probably not, so that will make it even more interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is. Obviously, they're using the iRacing Sprint Fix setup, so nobody's been able to get their individual setups honed down for this track. And they start with around about 60 litres in this. And one of the strategies is, do you go for more fuel, like you were saying there, Dave, or do you just stick to the 60 litres, which you know how the car will handle? It'd be interesting to see how many of the drivers have actually put a full tank of fuel in it and see how the cars react to being at full fuel rather than at 60 litres. But that's obviously what the drivers, and that's the control of the drivers of what they do during their pit stop stint. So it's going to be an interesting strategy call. It could be that we see drivers do 3 pit stops, we could see 2 pit stops, and I think that's very much where it's going to be won or lost.
Yeah, very much so. It's going to be won or lost in the pits. Now, the drivers who stick to a 60 litres will have to do 3 stops. The guys who fuel up the tank at the pit stops will be able to make this in 2 stops. It is a situation that a tank normally lasts about an hour, and we can see the guys in practice. We are a little bit late because of iRacing issues, not our fault, not the driver's fault, but iRacing playing up yet again. But we hopefully have got this on top, as we see Thomas Cope there, who's gone quickest but not qualified. So it'll be interesting to see how Tom comes through the field here today. It is Scott Mokes who will be on the pro pole position. I think it's Michael Hooper on the pro am pole position. So it's 2 drivers who've been in the top 3, but both being beat by Thomas Cope at this moment in time.
Yeah, it certainly is. And Scott, obviously, after his good performance at the Nords, sticking it on pole position here tonight. I'm just hoping that the grid does work as it should, as it was planned to. That was the issues we were having. The grid wasn't saving in iRacing, so I think it's saved. So I'm just touching every bit of wood that the grid is going to grid up. So they've only got 30 seconds left of free practice before we start this 2-hour marathon session around Spa. A track that everybody should be used to doing lots of laps around, and certainly with being one of the official endurance series on iRacing, you know, hopefully a lot of the guys have had practice. The good thing is it's all going to be in the daylight, so it's around about 2 p.m. Or 2:20 p.m. Start time, so they should have finished still in the light. So at least they don't have to contend with night racing.
Yeah, at least they don't have to try and make it round Spa in the dark, because that is not the best. I think we had a race early in the season. Was it Sebring that was in the dark, and that was fun for the drivers to try and get round. So fingers crossed this grid will play ball. We've obviously got the idea of tyres as well. We're talking about fuel. Tyres will last 2 laps, 2 stints, which is 2 hours. but will you want to take that risk around this circuit? As you can now see our grid coming up, so it's Scott Mokes on pole position for Kim Andre Borkland, Dean Powell and Nikolai Frayne on row 2, Aaron Powell and Arias Mantis on row 3, Jakob Burns and Thomas Cope on row 4.
And into the Pro-Ams, we got Michael Hoopla, who is your pole sitter. Alexander Squaret in second, Patrick Thompson in third, Russ Fowler in fourth, Frederick Goldberg in fifth, Casper Tunson in sixth, Tom Bingham in seventh, and Hakon Jolson in eighth.
And in AM, we have Steve Pearce taking yet another pole position from David Gill, the Reckless Abandon team, on the front row. Simeon Moldeclef and Sander Island for Sim Racing Norway. Up on the next row, then it's KZ Racing's Darren Doherty ahead of Sim Racing Norway's Gordon Haug. They are row 3 of the Amfield. Madsur, Jimmy Vark, Daniel Slater and Hendrik Howson round out the top 10, while Nigel Stock and John Tresidder are 11th and 12th.
So over in your rookie class, we got Lewis McEvany in pole position, Victor Lind in second, Lydia Rosser in third, and Matthew Gerard in fourth, with Paul Joseph Cliff in fifth place. So we got all the main protagonists in all of the current standings, and the way that this is going to go is the pros are going to go all the way to the line. And as you can see, there's a 10-second gap between each of the classes to allow for any incidents to happen in that first corner. So just move back up to the pros, and it's all under Scott Mokes here, and he's away at the moment. So a good start, managing to maintain that pole position, but you can sort of see him free abreast coming into the source, or nearly fourth there coming around. But Scott Mokes manages to get Nikolai Thrain, and actually classic, getting up 2 positions. But looking further back now here to the Pro-Ams, and Michael Hooper is away here in the class. Patrick Thompson has managed to get up another position, overtaking Alexander Squaret there for second overall in the Pro-Am field. As we look further back to the Amfield, headed out by Steve Pearce, another commanding qualifying for Steve to be able to do, and he'll be able to go as soon as he hits us, and he's away. So this is the Amfield now. Steve getting a really good exit out of that last chicane and making it stick, and we can see there 3 wide for that second place, managing to get out. But David Gill, had a good thing, but had to back out there, lost the position. Sander Island making a good start in the Amfield. As we look further back to the rookie class now, and Lewis is heading out the front of this field. All the main protagonists, only got 5 cars in the rookie class, but they are all fighting for the championship at the moment. And that's a first. There we go. All the rookies getting in line abreast for this first lap. Feeling that they need to just basically keep it nice and clean for the first. But look at the front of the Pro. Nikolai Frayne is on a mission, currently up 3 places from where he started, so has gone out of the blocks like a rocket as Nikolai Frayne. Scott Mokes in second place, our provisional pole sitter for that qualifying. Arias Mantis in third, Kim Andre Borg and Aaron Powell round out your top 5 in the pro field. So a great start, a nice clean start there, Dave, from all the classes.
Yeah, I've noticed Thomas Cope 8.3 seconds behind Jakob Berens in 8th place, so I'm not sure quite what's happened to Thomas. And also I saw a driver head into pit lane straight off the start. Now, whether that was because they picked up any damage, this is a replay of Thomas Cope first. So he's just coming up into Eau Rouge and heading round the outside of Jakob Berens, and just spins, trying to go too wide in the middle of Eau Rouge. Never always works, and a bit of a bent wing there for Thomas, but shouldn't be too much damage, and hopefully he isn't crabbing back to the pits. But we also saw a driver head to the pits straight off the, I think it was off the Amfield. Daniel Slater headed to pits. I'm wondering if that's tactical, to get out of the battles early and then have a full tank of fuel at the hour mark and then head back to a finish. It could be an interesting little tactic.
It'd be a very strange and unorthodox tactic, but we'll keep an eye out from Daniel Slater throughout the race. Obviously 2 hours left to go. Literally just done the first lap here, and the tyres have been nicely warmed up. So we'll start getting into some really good racing. But Nikolai Frayne at the moment just lost a little bit of his advantage to Scott Mokes, but the front 2 at the moment, pulling away from Arias Mantis in third place. So this is the Chasing Pro group with the top the top two managing to sort of little scamper away. You can just see him at the bottom of your screen now. A little bit of a gap, and Arias will be watching behind him from Kim-Andre Borkland, just 0.4 of a second behind. So he'll be watching the cars behind, which gives the opportunity for the front to try and scamper away. If we look further down the field, then if we look at the Pro-Ams, look at Michael Hoopler. He is, as we watch Kim-Andre Borkland just getting it slightly wrong there. But further back here now with the AMS, Sander Island currently in third place overall. And the AMP field pretty relatively close together. A little bit of a gap between Motorclever and Jimmy Vark there, further back in the field. But the main protagonists are at the front of the AMP field.
Yeah, and there's a move there by Sander Island going up the inside of Steve Pearce, who has lost the AMP lead to David Gill on the opening lap. So it'll be interesting to see, because it was, yes, Steve Pearce still holds on, but he's been harassed by Sim Racing Norway cars. 3 of them lined up behind him, all trying to get through. But at the moment, it's letting David Gill just pull away in that Ferrari, which we don't often see out on the grids lately. But Ferrari out there at the moment. A new fastest lap race by Scott Mokes at 2:16.3 early on. Top 2 pulling away slightly from Jan Mantis, who has 4 cars stuck behind him, and Thomas Cope closing in on Kim Andre, who we saw making that mistake back in the rookie field. As you can see, super close. Lewis is 9 seconds off the back of the Anfield, but then it's a second between each of the cars. Victor Lind, Lydia Rosa, Paul Joseph Kliss and Matthew Gerard, so 5 seconds covering the whole of the rookie field. And this is really a class which I am really looking forward to seeing how this develops over the second half of the season, because all 5 of them have had a chance to win races. We've got different cars. Lewis in the Porsche, I think, Victor Lind in the Lamborghini, Lydia Rosa in the Mercedes, Paul Joseph Kliss in the Porsche, and Matthew Gerard in the Mercedes. So a bit of compared to the other classes, there's a bit of a mix of cars here as well for the rookies.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a really close call, and the top 5 here are currently the top 5 in the championship. We will show you the championship as this race progresses, due to being slightly late coming online. So it's all going to be good.
It's been a crash for Jakob Behrens. I saw a huge sort of kerfuffle between some of the people. It's Jakob. We'll get back to that replay in a minute, but Jakob is now in the pits having a tow job, I think, in the end. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Here we go. He has a look down into what used to be called Malmedy, and he comes around the outside. Arias not making sure. Oh, and he gets up on the curb, goes into no name, and just loses the back end, and everybody else has nowhere to go. I literally had the same incident in the F4 officials this week, where you just come through no name early on, cold tyres, can't steer as much, lose the back end, and then like for example, it was myself, just couldn't go anywhere. You're so close to the car in front. So be interesting to see what happened, what Jakob can do when he gets back out of the pits. Paul Joseph Kliss looks to the inside of Lydia Rosu, hangs it round the outside. Lydia, we saw leading the class at the Nordschleife for quite a while, until she got caught up with a back marker, which was horrendous for her, but I think it really gave her the confidence to start fighting in the rookie class, rather than, as she put it to us, sort of driving around and just trying to make sure there's not an accident. Now she can get out there and fight.
She definitely can, but what these 3 are scrapping over now, giving them a good opportunity for the guys in front, Lewis and Victor Lind, to get away from this battle that we're watching on screen between Paul Joseph Kliss, Lydia Rosa and Matthew Gerard. So a little bit of a gap at the front of this rookie field, with the front 2 sort of scampering away, and Lewis is on a mission at the moment at the front of it. But Victor Lind is trying his best to try and keep up, only 1.3 seconds behind, as you can see him there, the Lamborghini just behind the Porsche that we're currently watching of Lewis. So a great bit of racing here. But here we go, looking down, Paul Joseph Kliss looking on the inside here into the chicane. Lydia trying to go around the outside manages to get that inside line and does get the move done. And Matthew Gerard behind is putting a lot of pressure under Paul Joseph Clist, and he was lucky not to lose 2 places there. So Lydia just getting up another place there, going in a little bit deep and getting on them brakes a little bit later to outbrake Paul Joseph Clist, which is unusual for the Porsche because it's renowned for its braking ability. But Lydia hanging it out there to get the position in the Mercedes and doing a cracking job. So these three are having a really good tussle out on track at the moment.
Yeah, and in Pro-Am at the moment, one class we haven't seen much of at the moment. Michael Hooper is leading away from Patrick Thompson. Alex Garrett is close in behind that, but then behind that there's a bit of a 5.5 second gap to Goldberg, Fowler, Bingham, Tungsten and Jolson. So there's 2 splits really between this. And as we can see there, the 2 Performance Link Esports cars are in the second split of the class, but only 9.5 minutes roughly gone. There's so much time for this to develop and see where people will end up. We see incidents and accidents. Things happen in hour-long and 30-minute races. You've got 2 hours now as Bingham goes to the inside of Russell Fowler. That was late by Bingham, and he seems to have gone very straight on there. You'll see him rejoining on the right-hand side. He'll probably lose another position here. He's trying to let Russ back through, and he's going to lose a position to Casper Tunstad as well, and through comes Yorkson. So probably right by Tom there. Just try and stay out of trouble and let the position go past because we have so much time to go. But I think literally just missed his braking point. And imagine, you know, I don't want to jinx our higher god or anything, but imagine if he'd run into the side of Russ Fowler there.
Yeah, his own teammate, as you see, just completely misses. Yeah, just the Exocet missile that is the Overlord coming through. Like, but he would have got a slowdown for that as well. Hence why he lost a couple of more positions. So Tom really trying to be racy. One of the tracks he was looking forward to here. But we'll join in the back here. Casper Johnson just behind Russ Fowler. Frederick Goldberg's just scampering away at the front there in that Ferrari. So one more trying to get away. Russ Fowler just holding off Casper Yorkson just behind. Hendrik Yorkson in 14th with Tom Bingham in 15th. So nice little battles here. But what we're seeing, we saw it in the pros, we're seeing it in the Pro-Ams, and we saw it in the rookies as well, is that, you know, this second pod that are racing each other, really giving the opportunity for the front runners to start scampering away a little bit, and they must be rubbing their hands with glee, the front runners in each of the classes, saying, yeah, you guys carry on fighting, I'll just extend my lead here. But going back up with the pros at the moment, we can see Nikolai Frayne and Scott Mokes caught in a battle here for the first place. Scott getting right onto the back now of Nikolai. These two 6.7 seconds ahead of Dean Powell in 3rd place. King Andre Portland in 4th. Aaron Powell and Germantus all following in close pursuit. So this 4-race battle for 3rd overall in class is heating up. But Thomas Cope is on a recovery drive, and he's just eating into the time. You can see 2:17 with the front runners, 2:16.9, so 0.6 of a second faster there was Thomas Cope, and he's making it hard for himself considering he is the class leader in that pro. But this is the endurance round, and a lot more points are on offer than any of the other 2 rounds. So really important that we get a good race. But here we see Scotty Mokes coming down the Kemmel Straight. Is he going to be able to make a move here on Nikolai Frayne, or is he just going to sit behind him really and just try and fuel save, Dave?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I think he might be trying to fuel save as these guys are really battling, and Andre Borkland goes up into 3rd ahead of the 2 Powells who are now side by side, Dean and Aaron, and they don't run into each other. That's good news for them. But I was just going to say, when we're talking about the Pro-Am class, you know, Alexander Skret will be rubbing his hands at the moment. He's sitting there nicely in 3rd place, about 1.5 seconds off Hooper and Thompson. Now, you know, the camaraderie and the friendliness in this series is there, but you have your rivals. Now, Hooper and Thompson, we know, have had a clash at Donington. But both, I think, missed 1 race so far this year, so they really want to score big in minutes. But with 13 minutes to go, you'd think, work together, let's move forward. These 2 are really going at it for this championship head to head, and it'll be really interesting to see whether one of them wants to get sort of a one over on each other really early in the race. You know, have that sort of strength position of I'm ahead of you, I'm quicker than you, early on in a 2-hour race. It's really important when you're getting into a championship fight. And you know, for example, Michael's got the advantage right now, but will Patrick want to try and make his way through as the two pals again go side by side through Blanchimont? It's not quite worked out there for Aaron. He's going to have another look. Oh no, it was for Aaron, and now the side by side into the bus stop chicane, which is less of a bus stop than it used to be. Two Porsches just holding each other up. Mantis having a lovely view of the battle and of Kim Andre Borkland disappearing up the road.
Yeah, it definitely is. These two fighting super hard at the moment, just compromising their lines as we look at the times there. 2:18.4 for this group we're watching. Thomas Cope at 2:16, so he is certainly catching them up and will be joining onto the back of this trio very shortly. Just about see him in Arias's rear view camera there, just coming up behind through Radion and El Rouge, so won't be too long. And I suppose the lucky thing that he does have is this is a 2-hour race, only 15 minutes in to this, and the other thing is we'll get to around about half an hour and then you'll see all these drivers coming into the pit stop, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do in the pit stop. I mean, we haven't really talked about tyre strategy before in the past because the races have been either half an hour or an hour. This is a 2-hour race, so do you try and eke out them tyres for 2 hours, or do you decide to change your tyres? That's going to be the $1 million question to be able to do. But Casper Tungsten here has managed to get back onto the back end of Frederick Goldberg there. So Frederick was trying to scamper away, but Casper has managed to pull him back in. So the driver's realising that all this fighting is losing positions out on track. But looking at Simon Motorclev at the moment, he was exceptionally quick in at the practice and hasn't had the best of starts here at the beginning of this race.
Yeah, it's not quite gone the way. Steve Pearce now in the lead of the AM category. He's got ahead of his teammate David Gill, and he's dragged for 3 Sim Norway guys with him. And this is a Reckless Abandon 2 against a Sim Racing Norway 3 in this battle. So it'd be interesting to see how it comes out. English flagged drivers against Norwegian as well. So it's country versus country as well as team versus team. And the 3 Porsches against the Ferrari and the BMW. So you can see Scott Mokes here at the front of the field, still pushing Nikolai Freyne along. These guys know that this can be a fuel race. They also know that Thomas Cope is still not that, you know, he's only 10 seconds behind, and we know Tom has huge amounts of pace. So these guys working together, I'd say, at this moment in time to try and move forward. And Nikolai we've seen have the pace and just get involved in a couple of accidents or not have the luck this season. So it's great to see him running at the front of the field. And we're on about the pace earlier of Thomas Cope, closing in on the back of Mantis, which he is there now. But Michael Hooper's got 2:16 mid pace, dragging Patrick Thompson and Alexander Skretalog. They may join the back of that Powell Mantis fight as well afterwards. So it'd be interesting to see what happens when they get that far. But as we were talking about the pit stops earlier on, as we now see Thomas Cope go up the inside of Mantis, that is one dispatch for Cope, and he now needs to dispatch of both of the Powells to move up. Would like to point out both of these Powells are not related. Even though they're driving the same car, different teams, different nationalities, just a surname, but it's exactly the same. So when we say it's a duo of Powells, it's not as bad as my karting series racing, where we have a Christopher Powell and a Chris Powell in the same series, which is not the best of things to try and work out.
Yeah, a couple of powers, but Thomas Cope making light of that 8-second deficit onto the back of this field. Obviously, I was dispatching Arias there and does have the 2 powers like you mentioned, but these two are fighting tooth or nail. So Thomas just needs to be a little bit cautious when he tries to make a move on these 2 Porsches in front before he makes his way back up. But back to the front of the Pro-Am field, and it's Michael Hooper again. I mean, he's just come on a charge in the last couple of rounds. Patrick wasn't there for the Nords, but Michael Hooper, who is leading the championships, and we will show you the points very shortly, at the moment over Patrick. Around about 2 points is the gap between these two, I believe, and these two are sort of running away with the Pro-Am field at the moment. So it's great to see him in close proximity again here in Spa. Still a long way to go. 18 minutes into a 2-hour race, but we join to the back of this third place overall in this Pro. In fact, you know, Kim Andre Bortland's just managed to scamper away a little bit over Aaron Powell. 3.2 seconds behind. We got Aaron Powell, Dean Powell, Thomas Cope, Arias Mantis. We see Thomas Cope go extremely wide there, coming out of La Source, coming down to Radion, trying to use all the track to his advantage. The drivers do have a 25 incident point limit before they will get a drive-through penalty, and around this track it's so easy to get them pesky little off track, so it's something else that the drivers have got to be conscious about. But you can just see Kim just at the front. They're going into turn number 7. Legumes just ahead of this fighting back, and again the powers going on. That's Thomas Cope just trying to put his nose of that Porsche up onto the inside there of Dean Powell. So yeah, I think he needs to try and get past these two Powells as soon as he can to try and eat in to Kim Andre Bortland, and then that, like you said, that 10-second gap at the moment. So he's really got to try to make easy work of these two Porsches in front, but easier said than done with pro drivers. But we head back to the Pro-Am field with Tom Bingham still locked with Russ Fowler and Jorgensen in 14th place. So these three having a real good tussle, and I've got to say, Dave, I do like that livery on that Lamborghini. It's quite striking.
Yeah, there's some great liveries in this series, and as we've mentioned before, Lewis brings it to us all in 4K, so great coverage for everybody watching. I did notice Steve Pearce back into the lead of AM, so that's another change between those, and I think that's going to continue throughout. What the drivers have to remember now is pit stops. Yes, you have 60 litres of fuel, but actually you could pit now, tank up, and still do it on 2 stops. You're just going to have a longer stop second time round. If you split it exactly how you think you'll have to split it to go to empty tanks, you'll do half an hour, and half an hour again. So you might swap it round. You might think, what I'm going to do is an hour, so 2 half-an-hour stints, and then an hour at the end, but put some fresh tyres on or something like that. There's so many choices these drivers could do. It's just whether they have picked sort of or realised how many different strategies there is, because there's so many you could do. You could pit now and then have a bit of a 3/4 tank at the end of the race. So, you know, so much you could do. But Scott Mokes, I guarantee, is pretty much attached a rope to the behind of that Mercedes, because he is glued to the back of it, not looking at overtaking whatsoever, not interested in that right now, which is good, but also in terms of battling. But if Nikolai makes a mistake and he runs into the back of him or something like that, which could very happen to the best of them, you know, you just never know what might happen. So we will see with this battle, but Nikolai Frayne and Scott Mokes doing a great job of pulling away, saving a bit of fuel. If Nikolai had any fuel ideas, Scott Mokes is certainly not sharing them, because he's letting Nikolai lead the way just ahead of them on track. There is a lapped car coming up, but they're not catching it at a huge amount of pace, so I don't think they have to worry too much. I think it's Jakob Behrens in the Ford GT who's finally got out onto track. Yes, it is. I just saw him in the foreground, as David Gill now passes Steve Pearce again for the lead. Reckless abandon, swapping back and forward. Now that's what I'd expect from teammates. Save a bit of fuel, keep swapping back and forward, and the 3 Porsches behind, sitting behind, going, well, we'll save as much fuel as we want. I mean, at the back of it, Simeon Motorclef's got a 4-car draft up the straight. I'll be surprised if he's even hitting the accelerator up Eau Rouge.
Exactly, you know, super close at the moment. And as we watch another one of our Ford that is Nigel's stock there. Lewis McCovey is overtaking him. The rookie driver taking his first AM victim of Nigel's stock there. Driving the Ford, and obviously where Jacob Behrens is taking on the challenge of driving the Ford, we have got to give a big shout out to Nigel for actually choosing to drive the Ford. Very big kahunas for him to even attempt it. I don't think anybody by choice would drive the Ford, but always great to see another Ford out on the track.
Yes, we have our first pit visitor in. It's one of the Powells. I'm not quite sure which one. I could just see at the bottom. It's Dean Powell into the pit. Now, as I said, you can do these pit stops whenever you want now, and you can probably make it to the end on 2 stops. So what it looks like Dean's doing is tanking the fuel, looking at how long he's in, and then going to push through to another pit stop, maybe around an hour and a quarter into this race. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. Just to let you know, though, on the tower on the left-hand side, the red is the Pro and the green is Pro-Am. I'm not sure why it's come up that way round, but it's not to worry. Nikolai Freyne leading the way and leading the race from Scott Moakes. And then you have Kim-Andre Borkland, Aaron Powell, Thomas Cope, Arian Mantis, and then Dean Powell drops back into the pack. Michael Hooper will be the next up on track from Patrick Thompson, Alex Garrett. So really interesting. This is that group again, which now has Dean Powell in it. So how many drivers are going to want to fall back? I mean, Dean was in a battle with Aaron Powell, Kim-Andre Borkland, Jan Mantis, and Thomas Cope. These guys might see this and go, well, we don't want to pit because we don't want to get involved in this fight. So they'll be looking to extend probably 2 or 3 more laps before they pit, so they don't end up like Dean in all this traffic.
Yeah, it definitely is. Let's just have a look. One of the questions that have been posted in the chat. Can we put the map up there, Lewis, just to see where the pros are, how close they are to catching the back of the rookie field? So you can see there the front pros are now on the back end of car number 32nd, who is Mads Sayer at the moment. So a little bit of traffic ahead of them, but only single car, so still probably the length of the Camel Straight plus where you can see them there. So still a fair while for the pro drivers to catch the rest of the main part of the field, but do have these stragglers, we will call them, people that may have had slight incidents at the back end of the field. But the drivers will continue to go around because it's super important for the drivers to score maximum points in this round, even if they're at the back of their class. And the point system in this championship is not based on overall finishing positions, it's based on your finishing position within your class. So as you saw, Jacob Behrens still going around right at the back of the field, currently 8th in the Pro, but that's still a decent points haul for him in the championship, and will continue him going along.
Yeah, I've just noticed too that comment from Rufy Moakes. I wonder if Scott's asked for that piece of information, because he's sitting in there behind Nikolai Freyne. He's seen cars just ahead on the track and will want to know how close it is till he gets a bulk of cars to try and overtake, and maybe try and undercut Nikolai on the pit stop so he doesn't get involved in the traffic. So I just wonder if that's a bit of information scalping from the driver as well as from Rufy, who is there supporting Scott along the way. Yeah, you never know. To be honest, if I was the driver, I would be looking for the same kind of information. Whether my my partner would be willing to start asking them questions for me, that's a different question.
Yeah, well, obviously it runs nicely into STK Gaming, who we do use here for our overlay. So you can add a virtual live HUD to iRacing, showing timing towers, enhanced relative boxes, mini maps, fuel calculators, and many more. Stream to Twitch with the most comprehensive overlay on iRacing. Broadcast your leagues and series. STK Gaming syncs your commentary, teams, and cameras. Focus, drive, and overlay with your broadcaster, and adjust your team strategy on the fly with the most accurate live timing on iRacing. So head over STK Gaming, and Reeve, you can head over there and you'll be able to tell Scott straight away, you know, where you're at, having all them wonderful apps right at your fingertips. So big thank you to STK, one of our sponsors here on the Performance Link page. But Nikolai's got to be getting slightly annoyed, Dave, you know, having Scott Mokes that close behind him, saving all that fuel and thinking, come on, Scott, do a bit of a turn here. But he's just not. He's just quite happy to sit there right behind Nikolai, give him a little bump draft here down the Camel Straight and save that fuel. So I would expect all this fuel saving that Scott's doing is to give Nikolai, will go in and Scott will be able to do an extra lap over Nikolai.
Yeah, the rate he's going, it won't be an extra lap, it'll be an extra hour. You know, the amount he's sitting behind Nikolai, obviously the Porsche and the Mercedes, I'd say probably a little bit more thirsty on the fuel than, say, people like Ferrari, but these cars are now quite clear of Kim Andre Borkland and Thomas Cope, who are third and fourth in class. Probably about 7 seconds roughly clear. So they've just got to keep this pushing through, especially through this traffic. Now, obviously in front of him is Jakob Behrens. He does have to be a little courteous with the blue flags, but he doesn't have to dive out of the way as such. He has got his own race to have, so I expect he'll probably let these guys through on the way to the bus stop chicane, which, as we stated before, has had many iterations over the years, starting from the little left, right, left, which disappeared around 2003 to a very weird chicane, a very quick chicane actually. In the end they made it, and then to this current version, which now goes the opposite way. So it's I think they've done a good job on the change of it, even though I did like that quirky little one they had back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you really had to attack the curbs. But Scott Moak's not attacking anything at the moment, just sitting there cruising along like he's on a Sunday drive. And I'm guessing that throttle pedal probably hasn't even reached full at any point of this race so far, because Scott is trying to save the planet here with his fuel strategy.
He certainly is, and to go that little bit extra as we just go on board here with Scott, just hear his engine note. Certainly we'll stay on board with him as he goes down the Camel Straight. We'll just see when he comes off that power towards the end and how much coasting he's doing, because you know, if you're this close to Nikolai or the car in front, you'll easily make the pass and move in Camel Straight. So we'll just listen to his engine note as he goes down this straight.
It looked like quite an early lift off for him. I've just noticed Kim Andre Borkland, while you were talking, said fastest lap of the race for the class. If you see it come up purple on the left hand side, it is lap time for the fastest lap of the class, not of the race. So as you can see, it's 2:16.222. Pro-Am is by Michael Hooper with 2:16.233, so that shows you how close they are. Amps 2:16.9, so still quite quick, and the rookies with a 17.4, so about half a second off the AMs there, which is what you kind of expect between the classes. It shows even on this long circuit, Pro-Am, really close together, about half a second covering everybody's lap time in terms of the fastest laps there. But Michael Hooper now has made his way past Aria Mantis and is in the pro class field here, about 3 seconds clear of Patrick Thompson, and 3 seconds for a pit stop for issues and stuff is certainly a good stage to be at, as Matthew Gerard heads to the pits. Was fourth or fifth in the rookie category and is headed to pit lane now for his first stop, so he's hoping to jump some of the people behind if possible, as we now look at Simeon Motorclef, who's now starting to look at Gordon Haug and trying to push his teammate along. Might be a few team orders here, because it does look like Simeon's getting held up a little bit, and Dean Powell not being able to make his way past Sandra Island, Steve Pearson, David Gill at the moment, and the pro driver really getting held up here in terms of his strategy. But it does, you know, if you're going to get held up, at least be in a pack that is not battling too hard, pushing forward, and he can save a little bit of fuel on the way, as Aria Yamantis is in the pits now. So this will be interesting. Where does Dean come out after he's been in this pack to where Arias comes out? Because they were both in the same fight.
Yeah, Casper Tungsten there. Your first Pro-Am goes into the pits as well. So we got Arius and Casper in the pits at the moment. But yeah, has Dean made a mistake slightly pitting as early as he did, getting caught up into this battle? He would have topped up his fuel, so we'll be running on full fuel, which would make him slower anyway and naturally than the rest of the field. And this might not be too bad for Dean having the tow of all these drivers, because one of the things with coming in early, and one of the things you've got to think about in your head, is that if you lose a tow around Spa, you're going to be losing at least half a second a lap. And luckily Dean caught that group that he's in. But we're looking at Arias Romantis at the moment, just coming out the exit, has lost loads of time to Dean Powell, who's slightly up the road at the moment as Arias comes out. So at the moment, Dean's strategy seems to be paying off with keeping up with these AM drivers. And like you said, they're no slouches themselves, doing a high 116s, and I think at the moment they're doing 217s out on track. So yeah, they're keeping Dean in the loop, I would say, and obviously being able to fuel save as well is great. But before we get into the big meat of the pit stops, let's have a look at the championship at the moment. We'll have a quick look at the pros. So I wonder if you could put up the pros here, Lewis, so we can have a quick scan at them. So this is a pro championship. Thomas Cope's currently leading on 83. Matty Chambers, who's not here. Elliot, who's not here. Arius Mantis is. Scott Mokes in 5th, currently on 65 points. Will leapfrog up the order, certainly with the points haul here. So Scott is on course for a good points haul. Same with Nikolai Frayne, if he's able to keep there, currently in 7th place overall there. So we've got Nikolai Frayne in 1st, Scott Mokes in 2nd here today, but Thomas Cope is on a charge. So, you know, everybody hoping at the moment for 3rd or better in the championship to try and extend that lead at the top. So moving over to the Pro-Ams. This is where we have the real battle. Michael Hoopla, who's currently leading in the Pro-Am field, is on 83 points. Patrick Thompson behind him in 2nd place on 81 points, so not that far behind. James Logdon, who didn't... No, he is not here either. Casper Tungsten in 4th. Russ Fowler in 5th. Tom Bingham in 6th. There, so super close in the Pro-Ams from 3rd going down. So that'll be interesting. But we have the top 2 protagonists in this class, Michael Hoopla and Patrick Thompson. But we'll have a look at the AMs and the rookies as we get into this, further into this race. No, we will have a look at it now. Why not? Do you want to take us through it, Dave?
Yeah, in the lead, we've got Steve Pearce, Sandra Ireland, very close together. In the points, Gordon Howe, Joe Saul, David Gill, Matt Jimmy Vark, Darren Doherty, and then we have Chris Ranson, Daniel Lillivick, who aren't here today. So very close between, I think it's 30 points covering the top 8. That's nothing at the moment in this series, with the drop scores that might come in. And in the rookie category, we also have the leader, who is Paul Joseph Cliffs for Olympus Esports. He's changed over from Apex Racing Academy. Matthew Gerard, the privateer, not too far behind. Lewis McCleverly really playing catch up after missing the first couple of rounds. Liddy Rosa and Victor Lind there, the top 5. The other drivers not having competed in a huge amount of rounds. Only Rich James Smith winning the opening round has really made something of note. Carl Gray not too far behind as well. But we are in the fix of the pit stops now. You can see all the names across the bottom of the screen, really scrolling through because everyone's pitting now. So we'll start to see where people have come out. I would like to correct myself though. I said about Rufy Mokes passing on information to Scott. It is Rufy's actually his sister-in-law who lives 100 miles away.
Right. Modern technology, distance is nothing.
Distance is nothing. Mercedes to Japan can relay information. I'm not saying you are, but you know, you certainly could be. But yeah, just to stop any war, that is his sister-in-law, not his partner. So, I'd just like to clear that up, and I apologise.
Yeah, 100 miles is a mere drop in the ocean. I think, Lewis, I think you're in Italy. I'm in Liverpool. And Dave, where are you at?
I'm in the Midlands, so I can reach anywhere.
We are miles away from each other, so 100 miles is a drop in the emotion. But interesting to see, we've had a lot of our pit stoppers in, so we do
Yeah.
have we got Nikolai Frayne. He's in as well.
I think Nikolai I think it was the lap before, mate. No, is that Nikolai? Yeah, Nikolai was the lap before, and Scott has done one extra lap and come out just in front, only just. But
Yeah.
look who's come out in the lead, Kim Andre Borkland. Now this is what I was on about pit strategy. I'm thinking, knowing the gap and everything, Kim Andre has put in the 60 litres to get to the next stop, to get to the hour, and then he can decide whether to tank the fuel or not. Scott Mokes and Nikolai Frayne will have probably tanked for fuel here to get to the hour-and-a-half mark, and that's where the difference. I mean, we're looking at pit stop times there, huge 10 seconds there. That is probably 30 litres of fuel quite easily, or tyres as well. I mean, Scott and Nikolai might have gone, right, we'll have new tyres while we're doing the fuel. I mean, we don't do them at the same time, but possibly their thought process. But looking at pit stop times, Alex and the Scurret now leads in Pro-Am after a 26.1 second stop. So I'm not even sure what he's put in his tank there, to be honest. Air, maybe, the speed of that pit stop. You know, we've got Tom Bingham with a 35.2 compared to 42.6 by some drivers. So that shows you this fuel strategy. We're really not going to know until the hour mark of what is actually going to be the situation. But what we can tell you right now is Kim Andre Borkland has closed in about a 10-second gap to Mokes and Frayne, and now leads this race with Norwegian leads from Scott Mokes. And I think Mokes must be sitting there thinking, what the hell's happened? I was sitting behind Nikolai Frayne, we were pulling away, and all of a sudden, I've got a sim racing Norway car in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, the strategies this round was always going to be about what is the different strategies that the driver has. It does, like you say, look like Kim Andre Borkland's just put that 60 litres in, and looking at Scott Mokes and Nikolai Frayne, who have put in a lot more fuel. But this will probably go into Scott Mokes' hands. He will be liking this after, you know, following Nikolai Frayne's bumper for pretty much the majority of that first stint. You can just see Nikolai at the back there. As long as Scott can get onto the back of Kim Andre Borkland, he can get a nice little tow and push him along, and hopefully, well, from his point of view, that Nikolai will not be able to close the gap, as we watch Casper Tuxton and Tom Bingham having a little bit of a duel here, 11th and 12th. Tom on the inside here, coming into turn number one, Le Source. Casper just trying to get that little bit of toe, just going out slightly wide. So we should get a better exit here coming down to Radion Eau Rouge, but would probably pay not to go side by side through this set of corners. We've seen so many. We saw at the start of the race Thomas Cope getting caught out in there. It's really not a set of corners to go 2 by 2, but Casper there, super racy, and should be able to get the passing move done here on Tom. Does have the slipstream literally right up behind Tom, just hugging the inside of the track, making Casper go the long way around here, and will not be able to get that move done. So Tom sort of compromising slightly Casper's speed coming into turn number 7, Lecombs, but well within his rights there, Tom, and a great little bit of defending. So these two having a nice little battle out there, but strategy is going to pay in. And, you know, I think, to me, it makes sense what I think Scott and Nikolai have done. If they've, and all the other drivers like Dean, who's put all the fuel in to top it out to 90, coming in, don't change your tyres, because I think the strategy might be that the next time they come in, they'll just put the 60 litres or enough to get them to the end of the race, change the tyres. Now, if you look on the other side of it, you got Kim Andre Borkland, who might have only just put 2 lots of 60 litres in, coming in, will have to take a lot more fuel than the other two. And then if he decides to change his tyres, it's going to be even longer in the pit. So this strategy calls from the different drivers is it's going to win or lose this race for a lot of these drivers out on track, or gain a lot of positions. So it's going to be really interesting come the last half hour, and certainly the last pit stop of this round is going to be interesting for that fight for the checkered flag.
Yeah, I mean, we look at Michael Hooper now 4 seconds behind Patrick Thompson. This is Gordon Haug, who was part of that Sim Racing Norway trio fighting in the AM category. You just see what happens here at the bus stop chicane. Bit too much power on exit, I'm presuming. And no, just runs out wide and doesn't seem to be a huge amount there unless he loses it down at La Source. But I was going to also mention while we let this replay run on, Dean Slater. Oh, it was Hakon Jolson who spun in the middle of La Source, and Gordon Howe just missed him, and Hakon jumped into the pits in the Lamborghini. Did see him fall down the time sheet, so I did think something may have happened. But yeah, Daniel Slater up into 21st overall. Now, if he has done that kind of strategy where he's tanked up at the start of the race and now he's just got one pit stop to do in the race progress, that does kind of make a decent result on for Daniel Slater here, who's 3 seconds behind Darren Doherty and about 14 behind Steve Pierce. He's now got a bit of a light car while everyone's a bit heavy. He'll come in just after the hour mark maybe, and then he will be able to push on for the second half of the race. It could be an interesting call here because obviously on the opening lap, everyone's getting up to speed, everyone's bringing tyres up to temperature. He put a full tank of fuel in and just kept going. Whether this has been on purpose or not, I don't know, but it could be an absolute corker of a plan by Daniel Slater to try and get his best result of the season. Back in Pro-Am, though, Patrick Thompson up into the lead, just got Thomas Cope up behind him. Michael Hooper now about 4 seconds back from Patrick, so that again probably comes down to pit lane time. We've got the stop time. You've got to stop on your marks for the actual speed limit line as well. Things like that, so crucial around most circuits. But here it's not really a high-speed entrance. You've just got to be a little bit careful. But fastest lap of the race by Thomas Cope, 2 minutes 16.0 while in traffic. I'm quite concerned for everybody else what he might end up doing afterwards. But Scott Moakes back up front, 2/10 off Kim Andre Borkland, looking nicely in the slipstream. Will he try and make the move on Kim Andre at this moment? He's 10th behind now, going up the straight, and I think he's sat in behind him again. So same tactics by Scott Moakes for the second half of this race.
Yeah, it definitely is, and luckily he's still got that slipstream effect as well. So a lot of these drivers coming out, certainly in the pro field, coming out in the mix of the pro-ams and the AMs, and still being able to maintain that slipstream effect. So really vital at the moment as we see Dean just at the front of this pack at the moment. So he's the one not getting any slipstream and giving it to Patrick Thompson and Thomas Cope behind, with Alexander Skrett just in the background there in this 4-car lineup at the moment. But Kim Andre Borkland, Scott Moakes looks like he has managed to get onto the back end of Kim Andre Borkland. We can see there 0.4 of a second. Nikolai Frane has lost the slipstream from Scott Moakes, so this could play into Scott Moakes' hands beautifully here, in that, you know, he has got the slipstream of the lighter car in front to be able to pull him along, and he's just enabling himself to get further and further away from Nikolai Frane. So when Kim does finally come in for that pit stop, these guys will have a few more laps to go under their belts before they would have to come in, but the gap will be considerable. You can see the gap going up all the time, 2.9 seconds at the moment. So great bit of strategy being played here by Scott, and I think probably a little bit of luck and fortuitous is that Kim Andre Borkland came out in front of him to give him that slipstream, to be able to see the gap there. You can see the gap on screen between himself and Nikolai Frane in third place. Sort of a role reverse from the first stint where Nikolai led it for pretty much everything. Scott Moakes looks like he's going to make a passing move here. Nope, he is just showing his nose there to Kim. Just tucked up nicely behind Kim's car and resumes his slipstream fest.
Yeah, Scott Moakes is just loving following the rear of another car at the moment, and he's after this race we will get him to draw the rear of every car he's followed, because he should be able to do it blindfolded. But I've just heard that Thomas Cope may have used his fast repair in the pit stops. Now, these drivers must have remembered to turn it off if they don't need it. Now, if they've used it in the opening, we could have the incident later on in the race and then not be able to repair the car because they've used a fast repair. So that could be crucial. And it would just be interesting. But now, Thomas Cope, we know, hit the wall in Eau Rouge on lap 1. Really interesting to see what happens there in terms of a fight, because he had rear wing damage from that opening lap and felt the need to do it. But I mean, look at his lap times there on the left hand side, 2 minutes 16.0. Nobody within 0.2 of a second. The top of the pro-ams into the 16s quite nicely as well. And then we've got quite a few 17s. This shows you how close the field is though. 2:16.0 the fastest. Most of the field 16s or 17s, and this is over a 2 minute 16-17 lap, so it's amazingly close. You can see at the top the leaders for each of the class: Andre Borkland, Thompson, Simeon Mulderclef has now hit the front of the AM field, and Sander Island and Gordon Howell. These three Sim Racing Norway cars are all on the same strategy. They all fueled about 10 seconds less. David Gill and Steve Pearce, the reckless abandon guys, who have probably gone for the full tank. Now, we don't want to bore you with all the strategy talk, but we have no choice with this, because this is what's going to make it really interesting. These Sim Racing Norway guys aren't all together now, aren't all slipstreaming each other. David Gill and Steve Pearce around about 2 seconds apart, so it's sort of a fair fight between everybody just to see what you have on pace at this stage. But obviously these guys are going to have to hit and fuel up more than the others later on, so it's going to be really interesting to see. We're going to keep pushing this onto you because it is actually so close in terms of racing, even though the gaps might look a bit further apart. Jacob Behrens now up to 22nd behind Daniel Slater, who we keep mentioning is on the move. He's right up behind Darren Doherty now. So that battle for the top 20 is going to be really interesting. Thomas Cope just fallen back behind Patrick Thompson again now. So Thomas Cope struggling to stay ahead of them pro-ams right now.
He is, but to be fair, he's not actually fighting Patrick Thompson. So they're quite close. You can see how close they are on the cameras there, and extremely close. So there's not a lot of fighting. This is a replay of maybe what happened to Thomas Cope. So 3 wide here, coming down the Kemmel Straight, coming into Lecum's turn number 7. What happens here? I think Thomas just slightly backs out, and Patrick just picks his pocket there and gets back in front. Probably not what Thomas wanted, but these cars are really close together, and he wouldn't have lost too much time there. But we're joining the back, the front of the AM field. Mulderclef's having a great one. Sander Island, as we saw there, second in the championship overall. Could really do with these points over Stuart Pearce, who's currently down there in 5th place. But if we look further back at the rookie field, that's all changed as well after the round of pit stop. Lewis McKevney still leads out the rookie field at the moment. But in 2nd place, we got Lydia Rossa out there. She did a 29.18 second pit stop. Quickest out of the rookie field, and the ones further back, Victor Lind and Matthew Gerard, taking 43 and 39 seconds of fuel on there. And Paul Joseph Clist, who's currently heading out 5th in class, 32nd on the field, was a 1 minute and 2. So that may be indication that he has actually changed his tyres here in this first stint to maybe save the time later on. So like you were saying, Dave, all these permutations of the different tactics in the pit stop should all come to fruition after the last stop, and that's where we'll really see whose strategy has paid out the best and who's sort of the big losers in the pit lane strategy fight in this 2-hour race.
Yeah, and find it really interesting that Scott, even though he had the pace to pull away from Kim Andre in the first part of the hour, in the second part of the hour he's been very content to sit there behind Kim Andre. And there's a spin for a Mercedes, I think. Is that Matthew? I think it's Matthew Gerard.
Ooh.
Nikolai Frayne is behind. That was Matthew Gerard spinning down at Malmedy. I think he's just probably lost the back end on entrance, and then he was recovering it, as we will now see. The Kiwi coming down the hill. Yeah, just loses the back end, a bit too much speed in. You've got to remember as well, Matthew will have owned. It was close for the 2 leaders, but Matthew is in a position. He's only just woke up to do these races. That's, you know, he's on the other side of the world. You know, he wakes up, I think it's about 9 o'clock in the morning for him. So it's a completely different feeling to everybody else who races in this series. We were racing in the evening, going into the night. He's absolutely the opposite. He wakes up, has breakfast, then does these races. So really, one mistake, but it's the first mistake I think we've seen from Matthew Gerard all season. As we now go back to the front, and Scott Mokes really pushing on Andre Borkland to keep him going, but really disinterested in making any overtakes.
He certainly is, but look at the gap between himself, Scott, and Nikolai Frayne in 3rd place. 3.5 seconds. That was up to 3.9, so maybe Scott just trying to push Kim to go a little bit faster to try and keep that gap as it is at the moment, because there's no slipstream effect, and we're looking at the probably strategies of Scott Mokes and Nikolai Frayne very similar there. Nigel Stock in 31st, getting lapped by a few of the pro drivers now, just staying out the way. Really, the Ford striking colours on that Ford, as we see there. And is that Thomas Cope just behind it?
Yes, it is. It's Thompson, Powell, Scrat, Hooper, Powell. Yeah, Cope, who's dropped back quite a bit actually. You know, he's now 5 seconds behind Powell.
224.
Can't see any damage, but it definitely must have been an off by Thomas Cope somewhere. And he's going to have to really recover from that right now and see how he will get on. But we should see a replay here. He's going through the chicane here in the towards the end of the lap, and on the outside, I'm guessing, onto gravel. No, looking okay at the moment. Right behind Patrick. Oh, just runs wide. Oh, and clips a wall on the exit of Paul Frere, and looks like he may have somehow got away with that without a huge amount of damage.
Well, we know he's used his fast repair, like you said, so he hasn't got that fast repair on him. It'd be interesting to go on board with him, seeing if that steering is straight or not, because that was a super big hit for the Porsche driver and our current pro champ. It seems all right at the moment, looking at his wheel, but I think he will have some aero damage, and that's the reason why he is now not fighting with Aaron Powell or Michael Hoopla as he was previously. That was a really big shunt, and luckily he sort of hit the wall almost perfectly to the side of it. I think if it was to the front or to the rear, that certainly would have been some suspension. So a lucky escape there for Thomas Cope, but has lost time in the process. Be interesting to see what his next lap time is as he's coming down to complete this. His last one was a 2:24. He was round about the 2:16s. So it's going to be interesting to see how much time he has lost, or how much time he is losing now per lap, considering where he was. So let's have a look at his lap time when he comes across the line here.
Yeah, if you guys are wondering where you can see Thomas Cope there, he keeps looking up, and what he'll be looking up at is he will have either he'll have another screen above with either live timing on or some information. Normally Thomas has got a spotter as well, which helps him out. But even with that damage, Thomas is only 20 seconds off the lead because of these different strategies and that. So let's see what, last lap he's trying to make sure the car was okay, get it back going. That was 2:21. Wasn't actually that quick, but let's just see how he goes. But looking a bit non-plus in the picture, but certainly a bit of concern for him, because our Mantis is closing in, and then about 18 seconds behind is his good friend Tom Bingham, who probably won't let him forget if he drives past him. But Nikolai Frayne, Nikolai Frayne fallen down the order very, very quickly, and I think he's had to tow. Nikolai Frayne, who was leading this race early on, is now towed to the pits, and is this a accident for Nikolai Frayne? He's down at Malmedy, same corner we keep seeing, and he comes down to no name or speaker's corner or louder corner. Logs
Oh, so he
in.
DC'd.
Is that a
Oh,
no, he's back in there, and then he pulls to the side. Uh, that is a technical issue of some kind for Nikolai Frayne, and his bad
oh.
luck just continues, running so well in third place overall. But that has now released Scott Mokes and Kim-Andre Borkland to the sound of 7 seconds to Patrick Thompson, the Pro-Am leader, who's up in third overall at the moment. I think we saw Patrick get a top 3 overall earlier in the season, and he's on for it again, just ahead of Dean Powell, who we saw pitting nice and early. We've also had another pit visitor in Daniel Slater. Now, let's see if that is his strategy coming to plan. Because if it is, he's not going to make the end of this race. So he just needs to either save a little bit more fuel, or as he just comes out of the pits there, just in front of this battle with Patrick Thompson, Daniel Slater really needs to make sure he can make a tank last just over an hour at Spa. So it is possible for him to make the end without any more stops, and that's what he'll need to try and do. He also needs to be very good with his fuel saving, so it'll be maybe a splash or dash near the end of the race for Daniel Slater.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's going to be interesting to see his tactic, but absolutely feel sorry for Nikolai Frayne, who had... oh, no! Patrick Thompson's getting into a little bit of contact there, and hopefully it hasn't got too much damage. Oh, nearly comes back onto track in front of others, so really put pay to him, and that's out easy. We saw it last week with Lydia Rossa, 20 seconds ahead of the rookie class, getting involved with some back markers, and this has happened again here at Spa to Patrick Thompson. This will be devastating for the Norwegian driver. Let's have a look at what happened here, coming down the straight here, the camera straight.
He's got a bit of toe behind Daniel Slater. Daniel pulls across to the side, obviously knowing he's being lapped, and Patrick, it's so late in the day for the on the straight. That's by the way, we could just hear Lewis saying sorry for going to the aerial camera. It's fine, Lewis, you do a great job. Daniel there pulled across quite late in the straight, and then Patrick has almost turned in, expected Daniel to almost come to a stop as such. I'm only calling this as I see it right there. It looked like Patrick has maybe not given Daniel room. I don't know. Maybe we could have the onboard with Daniel at some point into that corner and just see whether he squeezed on the apex. But what disappointment for Patrick Thompson. A bit of damage as well. So what will be interesting now for Patrick is if he finds out that damage is too much, he is in a position now that he could pit, tank for fuel, and get to the end of this race. So he is certainly not out of it yet. And if the damage, he's obviously going to go another lap just to find out. If the damage is too much, he can pit and can make the end of this race. And as you can see just behind, Matthew Gerard is there. But that has allowed Alexander Scaret to move back into the lead of the Pro-Am category. And Dean Powell was also pretty lucky not to get involved in that.
It certainly was, but what that has done to Patrick is he's lost his advantage that he had, because obviously there was a 10-second difference in the pit stop strategy between himself and Michael Hoopla, and that incident there has sort of wiped all that out. So Michael Hoopla has obviously tanked his tank up to the max in his first stint. Alexander Scret only had 26 seconds, so he is going to be pitting a lot earlier than Michael Hooper will be for the lead. So at the moment, Michael Hooper in the driving seat in that Pro-Am field at these early stages. It's going to be interesting to see this next round, and like you said, what Patrick Thompson is going to do to try and combat this. I think he's going to have to come in, get that fast repair, get any damage sorted, do his last stop, and then come out and just roll that dice, because at the moment the driving seat is Michael Hoopla, who's got a commanding grip on this race in that Pro-Am field. Even though Alexander Scaret is in front of him, there was a difference of near enough 11 seconds in fuel difference on this stop, so we would expect Alexander to come in a lot earlier than Michael will on this second stint. And it's going to be interesting what these drivers do and what fuel they put in, and even if they sort of change tyres on this second pit stop round. So it's going to be an interesting one. We're getting into just over the hour mark, so we should start seeing a few of the cars coming in, certainly the ones that only took 60 litres within the next couple of laps, and then they should be brimming their tanks to get to the end of the race. Or the other strategy is constantly just do 60, 60, 60. You know, you're used to the 60 litres in this car. These drivers will not be used to getting 90 litres and the difference in braking zones and stuff like that unless they've done a lot of practice in the off season to be able to see what the car does when you brim it up. But Michael Hoopla at the moment has got the advantage there of the pro driver of Aaron Powell in front of him, giving him that slipstream effect as well. So not only has Patrick had that spin, but Michael is in a strong position at the moment, tucked up the rear wing of Aaron Powell's Porsche in front to be able to get that vital toe around this circuit, which does increase your time by 0.5 of a second. If you're in that toe around Spa. With that heavier fuel, it'll probably neutralize it, and it'll be interesting to see what was the last time. So it was a 217 for Michael, and it was a 217 for Patrick as well. So there's no difference in the two driver speeds.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at the timing, and Thomas Cope, 220s he's setting at the moment. He was in the 216s, low 216s, maybe even sniffing a 215. That damage has really crippled that Porsche, and it'd be interesting to see whether he decides to take any repairs when he pits this, because obviously he's used his fast repair. He's going to have to just sit and wait it out. It will do some repairs while he's having his fuel put in. So it'd be interesting to see what, you know, how much that. There won't be required repairs because he would have had a meatball by now. But if there's any Porsche repairs, it's whether he takes it. He's running 4 seconds off his pace at the moment. So for me, depending how much it is, if it's 30 seconds or so, I'd be taking it. So we're now watching Tom Bingham go to inside, having a titanic struggle with Casper Tunstall right now, over 4th in class. And these two really need to start working together. They know they might find out. I mean, they're 45 seconds off the lead. Off in class, they're about 35 seconds off the lead. So they're still in this fight, but start working together, boys, a little bit, and you can keep ahead of Frederick Goldberg and Russ Fowler. Back in the AM category, Sander Ireland now leads away from Simeon Mulderclef, so that the Sim Racing Norway cars have swapped places, and Sander Ireland leads away from Mulderclef and Howell, but they're going to have to pit soon ahead of Gill and Pierce, who will go that little bit longer. So that's another strategy game that will happen. I'm actually surprised Kim Andre Borkland is still going out in front. I thought he might have had to pit by now, but those two up front haven't really pulled away from Dean Powell. So I wonder if Kim Andre is just controlling the pace, knowing that Scott Mokes isn't looking to overtake. As we've just seen there, the gap on the timing screen went down to below a tenth of a second. So Scott must have been right glued to Kim Andre going up the straight, and then has stayed behind him just to save that fuel, as Scott Mokes decides that fuel is not the way. I think he'd be brilliant in a Formula E car at this rate, you know, the way he's just sitting there trying to save the energy, save the fuel, just trying to make every pit stop as short as humanely possible. And it's working for him at the moment. And no disrespect to Kim Andre, but we know he's got a bit of a lighter car at this stage. And we could be seeing Scott Mokes in a position to take his first win of the season and the first win of the Performance Link team in the Performance Link Championship. So, you know, could be quite interesting for the title sponsor of the series. That is Thomas Cope pulling to the side, and I would say that's going to be a toe for Thomas Cope. He's decided the damage is too much.
Oh, he's gone. His engine's gone.
His engine has gone. That is the end for Thomas Cope, because an engine repair is about 40 minutes at least. And actually, I can tell you now, we can probably bring Thomas Cope in to find out what happened there, because he's popped into an interview race waiting room. Thomas, we brought you into the commentary box. An engine failure for your Porsche.
Yeah, it's finally blowing up on me after a few incidents this race.
Yeah, we saw the damage. We saw obviously the opening lap. You used your fast repair pit stop, and then that dramatic moment at Paul Frere corner. It was that just too much frontal damage, damaging the radiator, and obviously slowing you down and heating the engine.
A lot more embarrassing. It was a technical, so my screen had gone blank, and I had nothing visually to see where I was on track, and I misjudged the corner, hoping I was in the corner, and yeah, I misjudged the corner against the wall. So too much damage. Obviously, I had no fast repair, so I thought I'd just keep on going. I didn't have required repairs, so I definitely do have required repairs now. I think that's unfortunately going to be the end of the race, because engine blowings typically is 30-40 minutes of repairs, so that's going to be the end of mine there. So I'm hoping, I've got fingers crossed. Me and Scott had a chat before the race. I'm hoping he does well. He's got the right strategy under him. He knows what he's doing, and he's in the perfect spot to do well here.
We'll try and catch up with you later in the week, but thanks for joining us in the commentary box as soon as you blew up, shall we say.
Thank you very much, guys.
That was Thomas Cope, who we've just seen retire from a race. We don't often get live interviews in here, but Thomas joined us straight away to let us know what happened. And thank you for his honesty. You know, I mean, we saw a mistake and just thought, oh, he's run wide, but it actually sounds like he didn't even know where he was on the circuit.
That's one of the things, isn't it? And I think that's the added realism in this iRacing or any sim sort of racing, is that, you know, you don't have the mechanical failures out on track, but you certainly do have hardware failures, and that is devastating news for Thomas for the championship overall. But what that does do, it makes it super interesting that we'll have more cars in the battle for that pro championship overall. And if Scott can manage to get his strategy right here today, same with Andre Borkland, who was at the tail end of the pro field, but at the moment is having a super strong race here at Spa. And like we said, there's more points, is round about, it all scales within the points. So I'll try and get you the difference between an hour and this one, but it's literally half the points again on top of the hour race for the win. So, you know, really good points haul in these 2-hour races. And we said to the drivers at the start of the season, these are the 2 rounds that you really want to be doing a strong showing on, because these are the ones that have got the maximum points on offer and can really catapult people either up the leaderboard or down the leaderboard. And one of the good things that we did see in that pro field is that all the main protagonists are not here, and if they are here, they are pretty much out of it. So it gives real good opportunity for the people lower down in the standings to be able to get up further up the field and get quite close to the top, which will make it really interesting in the class in the final 6 rounds of this season. So Thomas's loss is everyone else's gain, because it just tightens everything up in that pro class. But currently looking at Russ Fowler at the moment, all over the back of Frederick Goldberg's Ferrari, trying to have a strong day. But Russ seems to be struggling a little bit. He is currently 7th in class at the moment, but he does have the opportunity to get that 6th. But like you said, Dave, it's still early days with all these different strategies that have been going on. You can never really tell where people are until after that round of the final pit stops.
Exactly. As we now look back, we now look back at Lewis McCleverly leading the rookie class ahead of Lydia Rosa, who's in there, and Victor Lind, who's 3rd. So where has Paul Joseph Cliss and Matthew Gerard gone? We saw Matthew have an incident earlier on, and with his spin, and Paul Joseph Cliss is a little bit further back. But also, while we're on the technical news, Nikolai Frayne had his pit stop and then his steering wheel disconnected 3 times after his pit stop, and that's why we saw him have his issues and ended up retiring from the race. So it just shows you, even though it's real racing, technical issues can happen. Obviously, your windscreen doesn't turn off or your steering wheel doesn't just completely fail, but well, it can do. But Alex Scarrett, now in the pits, leader of Pro-Am category, is hitting pit lane. So this is the start of maybe the lightly fueled drivers who may make 30, 35 minutes of a race, now making 60, 70 minutes of a race and then trying to fuel to the end of the race. So this will be interesting. The first of the drivers to do that is Alexander Scuret, the leader of the Pro-Am category. As we now still look at Scott Mokes glued to the back. I mean, it's like trying to pay an Uber driver at this rate. Scott Mokes is like being towed along by anybody going, anybody who's willing to sit there. And Kim Andre's probably going, I'm the one with the lighter tank. Let me save a little bit of fuel.
It is, but Scott's playing it perfectly at the moment. We saw in that first stint, just glued to the back of Nicolai Freyne's car. This second stint, he's been able to latch onto the lighter Kimmer Andre Borkland as well, which is really helping his fuel saving abilities. So, you know, even though he's topped the tank, he's been able to just stick onto the back end of Kim Andre Borkland, which has enabled him to save even more fuel. So when he comes into his final stop, it'll almost be like a splash and dash for the Performance Link esports driver to just go to the end of the race, and that should pay dividends when it comes to time, when it comes out. We can see there Dean Powell currently 6.5 seconds. It has come down slightly from where it was, around about 7 seconds, but with this fact that Scott's been able to do a lot of savings of fuel, is that Dean will be pitting earlier. Dean did as well take a little bit more fuel, we can see there, but it's still around about 8 seconds less than what Scott Mokes did. So Scott is severely in the driving seat again for this pro. As long as he can, touch wood, have a nice clean race and not get caught up with rear markers, he really doesn't need to push that hard. So, you know, overtakes for him is really going to be his forte of whether he can get that race win. But at the moment, he's doing a cracking job as we Jacob Behrens just moving over to the side. The Ford driver having a terrible opening couple of laps. It's really put pay to his race, but great to still see him going along. But still going for another lap here is Kim Andre Borkland. So I'm quite surprised he's been able to go as far as he has at the moment. Maybe gone into a little bit of a fuel saving mode himself, so it's going to be interesting to see when he comes in. But Scott Mokes at the moment is odds-on favourite, I would say, to win this Pro Championship, and like you said, his very first one in the Performance Link. Looking further down the field then in the Pro-Ams, we've got Michael Hoopler's managed to get ahead, 6.3 seconds ahead of Patrick Thompson after we saw his earlier altercations exactly around this corner here that's put pay to him. Not that far behind, you can just see the gap there in relative track positions. It is 6.3 seconds, but Patrick Thompson has taken a lot less fuel than Michael Hoopler. So again, Michael Hoopler is in a strong position in that class. I think that probably the one, Dave, that is the closest is that AMP battle, currently being led by Sander Ireland. And I think, like you said, the two teammates there with Motorclub are working together to just share the load between the two of them to try and stretch out each one of these drivers to get as far as they can within the race. So great teamwork effort here from the two class leaders in there. And we can just see there at the back, Paul Joseph Klist, the only Olympus Esports car, sorry to rub it in, Thomas, going around the track at the moment. So still in 5th place, but has taken a lot of fuel compared to the front runners. But I think Lewis is sort of showing his dominance in this round and is super quick. I think his lap time's around 2:17. His last lap time was 2:17.47, so only 1/10 off his fastest lap. The rest of the Anfields are in the mid 2:18s, so extending his lead is Lewis in that rookie class. Doing an exceptional job, but again, it's going to be after that last round of pit stops. I really can't wait for that to happen to find out where all the cars are going to be out on track, because I just don't know at the moment with the differences in strategy from that first pit stop, Dave.
Yeah, we also have Madge and Lydia Rosa both in the pits. Arias Yaumantis heading in 1 lap later, as we now again look at Kim Andre Borkland doing a great job, you know, with Scott Mokes just behind, as we keep mentioning, and just keeping that going for another lap, keeping going until that tank runs dry. A little bit wide there in Lecombe as he is feeling the pressure from Scott, but not breaking under it now. We've seen Kim Andre have a bit of pace this year, not quite have the results he wanted. Maybe sometimes the pressure get to him, or he's had an incident with somebody else. It's not his fault, or all these things happen. But actually, this is a brilliant drive by Kim Andre. Fell back, playing a strategy game, and trying to get the team up there. Simeon Moldeclef sets the fastest lap for his class of a 2:16.5, and I haven't actually noticed this, but we have had a 15.9 in the bag by a Pro-Am driver. I'm presuming it's probably Michael Hooper, not 100% sure of that. So it's Michael Hooper who's set that lap time, sitting 5th overall at the moment behind Borkland, Mopes, and the two Powells who, both Powells have had pace this year and have been involved in incidents, but they've kept their noses clean even though they've had that side-by-side battle for lap after lap earlier in the race. And now sitting 3rd and 4th in class, but there we go. That shows you the fastest lap holders, apart from Thomas Pope. Again, sorry to rub it in, Thomas, but you will probably hold the fastest lap for the class. But then do we really know the pure pace of Scott Mokes? Because every time we've seen him, he's been sat in behind another driver, playing the long game. As Kim Andre Borkland again goes another lap. So it'd be really interesting to see how Kim... And they're not really pulling away from Dean Powell. You can see him in the background actually closing up. They both did a 16.3 and a 16.1, a 16.0 last time out for Dean Powell. So Kim Andre is really controlling this pace, trying to make sure he can stretch his fuel stop as long into race as possible. And as we've said before, it's all about keeping going in these races. Jakob Behrens in that Ford GT, even after that long pit stop at the start of the race, 6th place overall at the moment, and because he had the tow, 6th place in class, at the moment, and heading into the top 20 overall. So great job by the Ford GT driver. But we've just got to wait around now. There's a little bit of that paused waiting game, waiting for everybody to the start of them second stops to come in. And Aaron Powell has fallen behind Michael Hooper on that last lap. Now looking down to 4th place overall, 5th place overall, and it just looks like it's been a clear swap between the two drivers, because the intervals you can see on the screen are actually the intervals between the class drivers. So they are about 5 seconds off Dean Powell at this moment in time, as Sander Island and Gordon Haug head to the pit lane. So the Sim Racing Norway drivers, this is the trigger for the Anfield. David Gill and Steve Pearce go past and go round again. Moldeclef has managed to get another lap out of his fuel. So the Am battle is about to kick off.
It certainly is. And before that all kicks off, let's have just a quick look at the team championship within the league at the moment. So I was wondering if you could get that up for us, Lewis. And we can just see the team championship and who's leading the way at the moment. And at the top, it's Team Bear Pope on 2-4-5. Second is Evo SR on 2-3-1. And in third place is Sim Racing Norway. 4th place is Performance Link Esports, Reckless Abandons, Evo SR Black, Olympus Esports, Project Racing, GT Academy, and RS Competition Esports round out your top 10. But one of the interesting things on that, we do have obviously representation from Team Bear Pope, but Evo SR have one driver, I believe, left in this racing, so they will only score 1 point, because the team championship is not like the driver championship. There is 0 drop rounds for the team, so every round counts. And I think what may catapult is that Sim Racing Norway, with the tactics that they currently have on track, and the strength where they're at, is that they could actually leapfrog Evo SR into that second place. So it's all go. And same with Performance Link. As we see, Scott Mokes has taken over the lead of this race. Kim Andre Borkland did a grand job, to be fair, getting that fuel as far as he did, Dave, and is on the pit exit. Currently going to be in third place, but we'll have Dean Powell as well behind him. You can see there, both of them were on the pit exit. So Dean Powell closing in on Kim Andre Borkland. Just having a look at the two timings. So they're identical between Kim Andre Borkland and Dean Powell are 30.52 and a 30.23 respective. You know, super close on this last stint, and it's going to be interesting. But it's going to be interesting to see how far Scotty Mokes can go into this race. Literally fuel saving for the whole of that second stint. Brindy's car, I'd expect another couple of laps out of the British driver.
Yeah, certainly, as we see Simeon Murderclef has come into the pits from the lead of the AM category. So David Gill and Steve Pearce for Reckless Abandon now lead that class and have to work together to stretch that lead out ready for their pit stops, which will be shorter than the sim race in Norway, guys. So that will be the kicking point. We will keep our eyes on David Gill and Steve Pearce to see when they start to pit. But Scott Mokes, yeah, Kim Andre has pitted. Mokes will try and take it probably to the 1 hour 30 mark in this race at least. But a half an hour pit stop to make it. But he can pit whenever he wants. So if he starts hitting traffic and it slows him down, we'll just have to see what happens. If this is Jakob Behrens, Ford GT, please don't say you damaged it.
Yeah, I think he did.
Going through the chicane, the Fania chicane. Hits the gravel, snaps away and keeps it nicely out of the wall. Nicely done, Jakob. Just holds it back just to make sure nobody. Yeah, that's Powell and Hooper battle going past. There's Patrick Thompson in the background. Well done by the Norwegian driver to hold it there and not get involved in the battle. He's just here to score what points he can after a bad start to a race. So we now have an overall result so far of Scott Mokes leading away from Michael Hooper, the Pro-Am leader, from Aaron Powell, and Patrick Thompson is now in the pits. This is where Thompson would have wanted, as we look through the smoke from Thomas Cope's car still burning away in the pit lane. But Patrick Thompson, short fueled, had that incident, and now has to fuel that little bit longer. So this is crucial for him. He's now heading out of pit lane. He's done his pit stop. So it'd be crucial to see where he comes out. Alexander Scuret comes out ahead of him by the looks of things. There's Scuret going down the hill, and there in the background is Patrick Thompson. Thompson's closed a lot on Scuret and will be looking to try and get that second overall. So Hooper, who was behind Scuret when Scuret pitted, really going to have to keep the pace up just to make sure that he doesn't get involved in that fight when he comes into the pit. Casper Tunstad now jumps up into second in class. Header Scuret and Thompson. The Performance Link Porsche of Bingham, I think that is in the background, who has fallen very much off the field. Has Tom Bingham had an incident, or is he just pitted and he's trying to get out of the way of drivers who are a lap ahead of him? I'm not too sure, but he's well outside the top 22 now.
It looks like he has pitted. He's been in his last pit stop was a 3:39, so certainly an issue there.
That's Matthew Gerard, and that is Slater, I think, getting involved in another incident. Daniel Slater and Matthew Gerard trying to stay out of the way to rejoin, but let's see what happened here. That was Daniel Slater coming through Puon. It's Matt Serd, sorry. I'm just noticing the two cars are quite similar. And Matt gets a little touch, and I'm not quite sure what happened there. It looked like Mads tried to get out of the way of Matthew, and then Matthew, they both sort of judged the same way, but Matthew finally getting the car back going. But that is smoking away, as the mask would say, and that engine is closer to blowing up than Thomas Cope's, and I think he's definitely heading to a pit lane this time by. And Matthew Gerard will just be he would be hoping the repairs are under about 5 minutes if he can. I doubt it with that much smoke. And is he going to? No, he just pulls to the side to make sure he doesn't get in Steve Pearce's way. That's good driving by Matthew Gerard. This could be crucial for. He is going to pull over and tow by the looks of things. The engine has blown for Gerard, so that is now Gerard out of this race. There's no way it'll be repaired in that time. And Gerard will finish more than 3 laps down and will not score any points from this endurance race. So that is crucial for the Kiwi.
It is, but one thing I do want to have a look at is Lydia Rossa. So she currently has 2 stops in the bag. So she's done her 2 stops. She's currently lying in second place in the rookie class. So has a real good opportunity to get some valuable points here for that second. You can see Lewis there just in front of her. A couple of laps before, she was in front of Lewis. Lewis has managed to get past Lydia, but Lydia's had a strong showing in the second half of the race to get that second place. We did see her at the start of the race in roundabout 4th place overall, but again, the pit stop strategies have really come into play for Lydia, and she is currently sat in second place overall. How far is Victor behind? Can't really, just having a look.
I think Victor
22 seconds. 22 seconds.
Victor was leading the class when he pitted.
12. 12 seconds.
While we're on about pitting, Scott Mokes now hits pit lane. So the leader of the race, the pro leader, is now in pit lane. There he is as he goes past the less smoking of Thomas Cope. Somebody hasn't told Thomas Cope that smoking in pit lane isn't allowed. And Scott Mokes now just trying to fuel for that 32 minutes left of the race, maybe a little bit longer, because you've got to remember that the when the leader crosses the line, that will make it could make it a lap longer than everybody expects. But Michael Hooper, the German for Team Bearpoke, the 122 Porsche, now hits the front of the race, 3 seconds clear of Aaron Powell, who still, both of these drivers obviously still need to pit, but Kim Andre Borkland has come out in front of Scott Mokes. Crucial for this race. There's Kim Andre, and there is Scott Mokes. So Kim Andre Borkland's strategy is working a treat here, and we thought it was in the bag for Scott Mokes, but Kim Andre could be winning this race.
It could be a really strange strategy, because it was like a 12 seconds extra as Kim Andre Borkland, but just looking at the round of pit stop, Kim Andre Borkland only did a 30-second stop. Scott Mokes did a 39. So really strange pit lane strategy there from Kim Andre Borkland. He's done a lot less than Scott Mokes. Maybe Scott has changed the tyres. If he has, then he will have a really strong advantage in this last half an hour and should be able to close that gap to both Kim Andre Borkland. Darren Powell is currently showing as the leader, but does still owe us a pit stop in the pro. So it's very much down to Kim Andre Borkland. Can he win his first pro race here at Spa in the Endurance Series, or will it be Dean Powell at the moment? But it's going to be... Oh, Dean Powell's actually ahead of Scott Mokes as well. So he's done an exceptional job. So Scott, I don't know what's happened there. He seemed like he was in a commanding position, but took 39 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but obviously it just depends on the driver. Maybe a little bit of damage to the front of Scott's car, and he didn't want to make sure it wouldn't blow up. Maybe I just don't know. He's done a lot of pushing in this race. Michael Hooper, a 2:15.8. What a lap by the Team Bearpoke driver, the Pro-Am, who is going to need his own class above pro at this rate if he keeps this pace up. Is now pushing along. He's got a pit stop to make. Aaron Powell has a pit stop to make. So we're looking at Kim Andre Borkland as the clubhouse leader, with Dean Powell and Scott Mokes close behind. These are the laps that people pitted. Lap 15 for Hoopla and Powell. Lap 35 for Borkland Powell. 38 for Scott Mokes, who managed to go 3 laps longer, but such a longer pit stop, which is a strange one in my mind. Maybe
I think he's taken tyres, which will mean that Kim and Dean haven't taken tyres, and if that is the case, we're in for a grandstand finish into the last 30 minutes, because Scott will be super quick on brand new tyres if that is the case. So obviously this is his out lap at the moment, so I'd expect it to be relative, and then he should be able to really push on. So it's going to be interesting to see if Scott has taken tyres in this second pit round stop, which I thought he might do. And if the guys in front of him haven't, their tyres will be certainly going off the boil, whereas his will be nice and fresh. So if that is the case, as you can see, Scott Mokes already onto the back of Dean Powell at the moment. I think that might well be the case. And if this is, I think Scott will make short work of trying to get past Dean Powell. And he's only at 3.8 seconds behind Kim Andre Borkland. So this is going to be a super grandstand finish for Scott. He's done it the hard way by taking them tyres, but he will certainly be a lot quicker if that is the case.
Yeah, it could be the case, but from my experience of endurance races on iRacing, if you take tyres for 2-hour stints, so 2 1-hour stints, they go away from you in the first half of the second hour, but then they come back to you in the second half of the second hour. So is this the moment that's going to work for Scott Moakes? We really, we can't call this. As we can see in 8th and 9th overall, David Gill and Steve Pearce doing a great job for Reckless Abandon, still owing a pit stop, but now Motorclef, Sander Island, Gordon Haug are stuck in other traffic, other fights, whereas these guys are having clear runs. David Gill running really well there. There's Simeon Motorclef, leader of the Sim Racing Norway AM guys. He is now stuck in a fight with Goldberg, who's in a different class, but still a fight on track, again held up as he pushes on. So it'd be interesting to see once the 2 Reckless Abandon cars pits, as Aaron Powell pits from 2nd overall, and Kim Andre Borkland's back in the pits. He is coming into the pits. I can see on the timing screen, and oh no, it doesn't.
Aaron Powell.
Oh no, it was saying that. Okay, that's really strange because Aaron Powell is now ahead of No, there's Kim Andre Borkland and Aaron Powell side by side coming down to Eau Rouge. Okay, Aaron Powell is now 2nd overall in this race. I got confused by it coming up with the meters. As you can now see, David Gill is heading to pit lane, and you can see the meters counting down on it. Normally means they're coming into pit lane. So Steve Pearce also into pit lane. And this is Aaron Powell comes out the pits and is now just passing Kim Andre Borkland up into Les Combes. So I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but this is Kim Andre Borkland coming round, and this shows you how much we haven't kept up with the strategy in this race, because we're shocked at seeing this. We thought it was in the bag for Scott Moakes, but we've now got a 5-way fight for this victory, because we still have the pit stop of the Pro-Am leader to come into this, and he will be stopping for even shorter, Michael Hooper, and he could be well and truly in this fight. But Aaron Powell now leads this race.
Certainly does, and it looks like from Thomas Cope in our chat that Scott did take tyres at that last round of pit stop, so that would have cost him around about 20 seconds to do as Michael Hooper comes into the pit lane here. So expect Scotty Moakes to be super competitive and quick. The gap to the lead from where Scott is at the moment is round about 2.5 seconds. So he does have time to get this done, but does need to start passing these slower drivers with their well-worn tyres. So expect Scotty to not certainly sit behind anymore and show his hands. So we're right on board with Scotty Moakes. Let's see if he can make a move on Dean Powell coming into the bus stop. Dean Powell just going on the outside. Is he going to make a move into the bus stop? No, he doesn't. He just keeps it nice and clean behind him. Doesn't really lose the time. I think he's looking at further forward just to try and keep pushing the timings on here. So what was the timings overall? It was 2:16 from Dean and Scott, 2:17s for Kim Andre and Aaron Powell in front.
Sorry to interrupt, but Michael Hooper now leads this race overall. He has now made his pit stop and come out in the lead by 8 seconds. The Pro-Am leader. What on earth is going on here at Spa? We've got Michael Hooper leading the way and Aaron Powell in 2nd place. Kim Andre Borkland in 3rd, having a battle between themselves. Dean Powell in 4th. And
here comes Scotty.
Here comes Scott Moakes having a look at Dean Powell. We thought this was sewn and done, but there's 5 Porsches at front of this race that could take the overall victory. Obviously, Michael Hooper doesn't count towards the points of before other cars, but he will still want to take that first overall victory for a Performance Link Championship for a Pro-Am driver. I think we've had a 3rd so far for Patrick Thompson, possibly, but that is the highest for a Pro-Am. If one could win the race, I mean, what a result that would be. Just quickly, before we get this crescendo of a finish in the last 25 minutes, David Gill and Steve Pearce have both pitted in the AM category, and now there's 2 seconds between Simeon Moldeclef and David Gill for the lead of AM, and Sander Island is only another 1 second back from that. So Gordon Haug and Steve Pearce a bit further back behind Russ Fowler, who's got a 12-second gap to close. in there, so it's probably one of 3 who are going to win that Motorclef, Gill or Island. But certainly the eyes are fully on the front of this race for the Pro, because Aaron Powell is being forced along by Kim-Andre Borkland. All 3 of these drivers, apart, I would say they've all had a bit of bad luck this season, apart from maybe Scotty Mokes, got involved in an instant here or there. So all 3 of them driving brilliantly here at Spa to be involved in this battle.
So certainly, I'm just looking quickly down into the rookie field. Lewis McCleverty's leading out that race at the moment. Lydia is still in second place over Victor Linden. Looks like to have a sizable gap, 34 seconds. So pretty much as long as she can keep it nice and clean, we'll get her first podium of the season, and a great race for her. Lind in third place, and this is probably ideal for the rookie championship, because as we saw in the standard, you have Paul Joseph Clist, who's currently in 4th in class behind Victor Lind here at the moment. Matthew Gerard, who's in 2nd place, is behind Paul Joseph Clist. So in that rookie field with Lewis McEverly, I think he was in 3rd place, and Lydia in 4th, would really close that gap up the top of the field. So in that rookie class, so it'll make it even more exciting going into the second half of the season. So the rookie field at the moment playing into where the points need to go to make that championship super tight. We did see Matthew Gerard, who's now back out after his pit lane.
Maybe that
obviously
didn't
has
blow.
fast repair. Well, yeah, it's fast repair probably as well. So probably unticked his fast repair, luckily for him, and not Adam Darrods. But
that's mega news for Matthew Gerard in the championship as well, because he couldn't afford the non-score really. Not only being 1 lap off the lead of the class means he will score points for 5th place, as Paul Joseph Clist has pit lane, so maybe it may be a 4th place just yet, but we'll see when Paul's back out of the pits. No, it's definitely going to be not quite caught last time's winner Paul Joseph Clist up, but it's certainly going to close the points gap in the rookie category. But back at the front, the pros covered by less than a second. Kim-Andre Borkland, Aaron Powell, Dean Powell, Scotty Mokes, all within a second of each other. They must be literally towing each other along. 4 different teams, 3 different nationalities, 3 different surnames, no relation whatsoever, and no quarter going to be given in this race. As Kim-Andre gets a little nudge by Aaron Powell into the braking area, and disaster for Borkland. A little touch there, and Scott Mokes is right in behind. So the 2 Powells lead the way, unrelated as we've said before. But Aaron Powell, the American, leads the way from Dean Powell, the Englishman, and then Kim-Andre Borkland, the Norwegian, and Scott Mokes. These 2 know how to drive, and now that's Aaron Powell giving the position back. That's Aaron Powell letting Kim-Andre Borkland back, but because Dean Powell is in between and Scott Mokes is right up behind Kim-Andre, that's absolute fair play by Aaron Powell. He knew he'd made a mistake and let off the throttle after La Source and let Kim-Andre go. So Dean Powell now leads the way from Kim-Andre Borkland, Scott Mokes, and Aaron Powell is still there in the fight for this position, instead of thinking, maybe I've got a penalty. So and Scott Mokes into the back of Borkland. Borkland sideways, and now Mokes has made the error behind Borkland, and Borkland gets back going again. But that is going to be something that's on the back of Mokes' mind. Powell obviously let Borkland through for a similar thing at the bus stop, but I think that was a bit of a mistake by Scott Mokes.
Yeah, really close behind. Obviously, he's got the extra pace of the tyres, and I think that caught out. It's got a little bit coming in, and unfortunately just tagged the rear end of Kim-Andre Borkland there. So disaster there for Kim. He was having an exceptional race and really on pace at the moment. But looking back at the front, Dean Powell is currently leading that pro. Scotty Mokes in 2nd place, Aaron Powell in 3rd, and I hope that hasn't spoiled the grandstand finish between them 4 at the moment. I think Scotty Mokes is slowing down, it looks like to me, where he's on track, because that's gone out to 1.4 seconds, so certainly is slowing down, feeling that that was his and that's the camaraderie between these drivers out on track, is that you know, we saw Aaron Powell unfortunately give Kim Andre Buckland a little tap, let Kim back through, and yeah, Scott's slowing down slightly, but I think Kim's that far behind now,
Yeah.
6.7 seconds. Scott is probably just as well getting on with it and seeing what he can do. And obviously what will be if protests are put in, which brings me on nicely to the pit stop that we will be having either Tuesday or Wednesday. That we will going over this race, looking at the penalties, hopefully getting a few driver interviews as well. So that's going to be always an interesting topic, where we get all the drivers in, here and their point of view, when we decide what penalties that both me and Dave are going to give to the drivers. But being fair and honest, we always show the drivers exactly why we're giving it, which I think Dave, you probably agree, it makes it a lot easier for the drivers to digest why that is that they've got the penalty for that incident if they're protested.
Yeah, it certainly does, and sometimes the drivers don't even know they've been protested, so that also helps. Be very clear on all of that, and I wouldn't be surprised if Scott, if we did end up speaking to Scott after the race, he would hold his hands up straight away on that one, and if Kim Andre puts the penalty in, appeal in, I think just going off what we've seen, it would be pretty clear cut, but obviously we'd go through it and make sure that everything is clear cut, and the decision is only made once we know the full story. But out in front, the German Michael Hooper. Spa was the starting place of a Formula One career for another German, Michael Schumacher, in the Jordan back in 1991. And Hooper putting in an exceptional performance, just like Schumacher did back then. Even though Schumacher only made it to the fifth corner of the race before his clutch gave up, Hooper is 1 hour 44 into this race, 16 minutes to go to claim overall victory and the Pro-Am victory. And as much as you can say it's getting dark overhead, yes it is, but it's not rain. iRacing haven't introduced it in the middle of this race, so don't worry. I know it looks like it's about to rain, but it won't be in the Ardennes Forest. I can't wait for rain to come to iRacing, by the way. But Michael Hooper leading Pro-Am. Dean Powell still leading there in Pro. We've got Simeon Moldeclef with a 4-second lead out in the AM category at the moment. So the Sim Racing Norway guys were looking at a brilliant result, still are looking at a brilliant result, with 4th in Pro. Winner of AM at the moment, 3rd in AM at the moment, 5th in AM at the moment. So it could be a great day for the Sim Racing Norway guys in terms of the team's championship, really taking advantage of some teams not being here and getting the results which they need to get to push themselves up in that championship. It is certainly a champion drive out in front by Michael Hooper right now.
Certainly is. He's certainly shown his pace, and he's not lost any of that league. If anything, he's gained some more. He's 11.8 seconds ahead of Dean Powell in 2nd place. I think Scotty Muggs might have a little bit of front end damage, because I think he obviously tapped Kim Andre's car after the spin coming out of the last chicane on the start-finish straight, and then obviously had that incident coming down the Kemmel Straight, so may have a little bit of front-end damage on that Porsche, and hence why he's lost all that time to Dean Powell in front. But it's starting to come back slightly now. 1.5 seconds to go, 15 minutes still to go. We do know that Scotty did take tyres on his 2nd pit stop, where the rest of the drivers have not, so that may come as an advantage in this last 15 minutes, hopefully, if he hasn't got any front end damage on that Porsche. It does look relatively intact, although splattered with a lot of tar, as these cars under the marbles are kept on the track, so a lot of the cars looking a little bit worse from where, but hopefully his front end is still intact and he can sort of push on. We can start seeing it now coming down to 1.3 seconds, so there's certainly parts of the track that Scott is a lot faster than Dean Powell. We'll get a representation when they come round to finish this lap. Last lap was a 2:16. 216.44 from Dean and a 216.74 from Scott. So let's have a look and see what this lap timing is as they come across the line. So we have 216.4 for Michael Hooper, 216.76 for Dean, and a 216.23 for Scotty Moak. So Michael Hooper, for not changing his tyres, to be within 0.2 of a second of Scott Mokes, who's changed his tyres, that is just insane from the German driver. He's just had an outstanding race. And like we said, you know, what a round to have it at, the endurance round with the maximum points on offer, and probably the icing on his cake at the moment is Patrick Thompson is not in that second place for the Pro-Am. It is currently being held by Alexander Scuret, so they are at relatively close together, 2-second gap between Scuret and Thompson. So this could be a perfect day at the races for Michael Hoopla, who's currently leading that Pro-Am field by the slenderest of margin over his main rival Patrick Thompson. But Patrick Thompson is not in second place, so we'll be losing a lot more points than he was expecting to before the round of the second pit stops, where he was comfortably in second place. But I mean, wow, what a drive for Michael, and obviously that icing on the cake as well.
Yeah, obviously Patrick had that incident with the lapping Slater earlier on in the race when he was about 8 seconds up the road because he had short filled. So it might have been interesting to see where Thompson may have come out without that incident and the loss of time. But you've got to admit that I don't think any of us saw Hooper coming out in the overall lead of this race. And, you know, we're going to have learned a lot for the final round when we do another one of these 2-hour races, because I'm normally quite good at calling strategy, I'll admit it, but this race has thrown me completely, as Sander Island now goes to the inside of David Gill going up into Lecombe. Clean move by Sander Island, and it is now a Sim Racing Norway 1-2 in the AM class. A great day for the team, has just got that little bit better, and Gordon Haug is now 6 seconds behind Steve Pearce, so it's probably going to end up as a 1-2-5 with the 2 reckless abandon cars in between. Not quite the day Steve Pearce was hoping for his championship, but still a good result in 4th in the class. Back Definitely. In the rookie class, Lewis McLevely still leading the way in 21st overall, ahead of Lydia Rosa, the gap being roughly 16 seconds. So Lewis just trying to control it back. A Sim Racing Norway purple car there for Lewis. So even better for Sim Racing Norway at the moment. Lydia Rosa there in second place, that unmistakable pink Mercedes. Absolutely nobody else around her on track at this moment in time. About 5 seconds behind Daniel Slater, who we've seen in the wars today, trying to pull off that exceptional strategy, which I think may have worked if he hadn't got caught up in 1 or 2 incidents here today. I know Daniel is streaming out there today, streaming this race live, so it might be worth going back and having a look to see if that strategy was on purpose, and we'll get back to you in the pit stop whether it was. We might just ask him in chat rather than go through the whole video. But
exactly.
And actually behind Lydia Rosa at the moment is Tom Bingham, so that's where Tom disappeared off to. And obviously you said he had about a 3-minute pit stop at one point, so it's not been the day for Tom Bingham again. Last time out, was it last time or the time before, he had a computer failure right near the end of the race when looking at a podium. I wonder if the same thing may have hit him again and he's had to tow to the pits possibly. But back out in front, Scott Mokes has closed within 1 second of Dean Powell, and the fight is on in this last 9 minutes of this 2-hour race.
It certainly is. 0.7 of a second is Scott Mokes behind Dean Powell. Obviously, the difference in strategy, Scott Mokes does have a lot fresher tyres than Dean Powell, so did go out to round about 2 seconds, but has steadily clawed it back in. Now, Scott, if he hadn't to take them tyres, would be well ahead, probably in front of Michael Hoopla at the moment, but decided to take tyres, which may be a great call here now, because he's just right onto the back of Dean Powell's Porsche there, and this is probably almost like writing on the wall for Dean Powell, with Scott Mokes being as close as he is. Certainly going up Radion and El Rouge, if Scott can hang it together through that set of corners, will give him a good opportunity coming down into Kemmel Straight. to make the passing move. He's well within there, only 0.4 of a second. That is easily obtainable coming up through this set of corners. So you can see the time steadily coming down here as Scott Mokes looks ominous. Looking back from Dean Powell's car, so let's just have a look, see if he's an opportunity. You can see it 0.2 coming down to 0.1. I don't think he's going to be close enough to make that move at the moment. Here's Scott just fights on, but has really closed that gap. Aaron Powell has just dropped off the back of these two at the moment. You can just see him in the foreground there, just resigned into the fact of being fourth overall. And the most unfortunate one is Kim Andre Portland, currently in fifth overall, was leading this race and unfortunately got a couple of tags and a couple of laps previous, one from Aaron Powell and one from Scott Mokes. That's really probably put a dampener on him. But Kim, you've had an excellent result here. You know, things were taken out of your hands. You were at the front of this pro field, and nothing, you know, shouldn't feel bad about this at all. A great race. But let's see if Scott Mokes in the closing stage, only 8 minutes left of this race to go, and what might come into effect, as we just saw at the bottom of the screen, is a couple of stragglers at the back of the field may come into effect. Will certainly help Dean Powell out, give him a little bit of slipstream over Scott Mokes at the moment, but that's gap has currently gone back out to 0.5 of a second. So it's going to be an interesting last couple of laps here.
Yeah, it's just where they catch this traffic, as Dean is really pushing on, and it's Paul Joseph Cliss, and that looks like the 19th place car, which is, yeah, that's Paul Joseph Cliss, and then the 19th BMW. They have split themselves, Darren Doherty split themselves nicely there. Dean Powell trying to get every last inch of slipstream. It's going to make Scott Mokes a little tight into the corner actually on exit. It's going to give Dean Powell a little bit more of a run. I would admit that that markers there could have done a little bit better by both staying on the same side of the track, but it was done okay. Dean Powell up through Eau Rouge, over the top of Radion, holds it tight, Scott Mokes does. The gap is 2/10 of a second. Now, even if Scott Mokes did make it through here, it's not over Dean Powell with the slipstream. Daniel Slater in the pits right now, but we're looking at this lead for Pro, and the gap is staying exactly the same. Scott Mokes still not making that move. This is one thing that I've seen.
There.
It is. It's one thing I've seen with Scott Mokes. I know today he has been sort of slipstreaming, saving fuel, etc. But I don't see aggression in overtakes for Scott Mokes. It's either it's a move or it's not on. And this is where Scott's just got to be that little bit more aggressive and take full control of this to make that extra tyre life work. But Dean Powell driving brilliantly under this pressure. Here we are through Pouon, and he's actually extended the gap back out to half a second. And is this tyre strategy really going to work? And anybody who's done endurances on iRacing know that you set up the car to make the tyres last for 2 hours. Now, obviously, that's not been possible here. It is all the same setup. So even more credit to the drivers who have made it to the end of this race without hitting the tyres, because normally you'd set the car up, you'd make it a bit soft, sort the toe out to save the tyres. Don't get any of that here. And it's just a pure setup of the basic with a little bit more fuel in, up to 60 litres. So Dean Powell stretching this gap out as he comes through Bonchemont and into the bus stop chicane. And I would say we've probably got 3 laps to go. A little wide by Dean Powell in the middle of a chicane. That's going to give Scott Mokes just a little bit more incentive going. Dean's making a few mistakes. He's not quite hitting the apexes. And Scott Mokes is right up behind into La Source this time round. 13 seconds now up the road is Michael Hooper. So this is purely for P2 overall and the lead of the pro category. Scott Mokes down the hill. Here we go into Eau Rouge. Compression at the bottom of the hill. Up the hill they go. Both of them hit their marks, but Mokes within 2 seconds on the top of Radion. So this is his best chance so far. Powell goes to the inside. Mokes slipstreams all the way up. He's going to have to go to the outside if he wants to make this move. Powell is not going to relinquish the inside move. doesn't get alongside, but bides his time, tries to get run through Lecombe. Memories of Schumacher and Hill back in 1995 through that corner, but a little bit wide by Powell, doesn't quite lose traction, but Moak's still piling on the pressure onto the Englishman, and Aaron Powell is not too far away if these two get too much in a scrap.
No, definitely not. And this is where Dean Powell seems to be a lot better than Scott. So Scott really needs to make sure that he doesn't extend out to 0.5 of a second coming around Pouhon, which seems to be where they get the gap. And you can see the gap just slightly. It's actually a lot closer this time round than what it has been before. Normally, Dean gets that little bit buffer of half a second, but Scott is right on the back now of Dean Powell, 0.3 of a second. So there might be a move here coming down into Blanchimont into the corner if Scott's feeling brave enough at the moment, but keeping it this close out on track. I mean, Dean's just defending for his life at the moment in this last 3 minutes of this 2-hour race. Scott Mokes has got the fresher tyres, did decide to change his tyres in the last pit stop. Is that going to pay off for the Englishman, or is Dean Powell going to get his first race victory here? These two going tooth and nail at it in the closing stages, but Dean's just putting his car into the places where Scott just can't make that move. And like you said, Dave, is that we've had an interview with Scott and he said he will only make a passing move if it's on, and at the moment the opportunity is not really coming to me. But there is the white flag, I believe, so this is the last lap.
I didn't quite expect that.
No,
I didn't expect that to be the last lap. I thought we're going to have 2 to go, so Smokes has to make the move this time by. It is less than a tenth and a half going down into Eau Rouge. He's got to stay close to him through Eau Rouge. It's 0.15. 13, almost 14 seconds up the road is Hooper, but this is the important thing for Pro. So we're not watching anybody else on the screen, but this is the important battle. Mokes to the outside, Powell to the inside. They're going up to Lecombe. They're side by side. Who's going to break the latest into Lecombe? Brake lights go on to almost simultaneously. Mokes is around the outside. Powell gives him room, and Mokes is through. And finally, the tyre life actually helps Mokes get past Powell, but Powell still has every chance of coming back. He dummies to the inside of Malmedy. He's not quite going to make it through there.
No, definitely a great move. A great move there from Scott Mokes. It finally came off for him. He probably thinking it wasn't going to happen, but obviously being 0.1 of a second going up through Radion Eau Rouge was the game winner for him. Side by side down into Kemmel Straights, and having them fresher tyres was able to break a little bit later coming into Les Combes and getting the job done. Still not being able to sprint away from Dean Powell, but obviously this part of the track is extremely hard to make that passing move. So I think if Scott does manage to hold on here for that first place, he'll be thankful and probably questioning himself over should I really have changed my tyres, but it has all come good at the end for Scott Mokes. But let's not take it away from Michael Hooper up front, 14 seconds ahead of these two guys, just coming around. The first ever Pro-Am winner in the Performance Link League here, and he is going to take the checkered flag. I mean, he must be ecstatic in that car. The Pro-Am driver winning a race here, but we're joined back again coming down into the bus stop. Scott managing to keep his car there. Dean doing everything he can, but it is going to be Scott Mokes that takes the win in the Pro category, closely followed by Dean Powell, with Aaron Powell coming home in third place. But looking further back now to the AM, Simeon Modclev in 9th overall. I mean, to have an AM into the top 10 is something special as well. So Simeon Modclev there in 9th. Sander Island just a bit further back, 5.2 seconds at the moment. So has an opportunity here for some extreme valuable points as Simeon Modclev in that AM field. As you go to, it's very congested in this part of the track with who's that in front of him? That's Tom. Is that Lewis?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the AM car of the Sim Racing Purple. So that will not be Lewis. That will John Treston maybe, just in front of Simeon. But Alex Scarrett has come home second in Pro-Am. Patrick Thompson third in Pro-Am. Now Ostian Mantis 8th overall and 5th in Pro. Simeon Modclev is going to come home and win the AM category. Tom Bingham getting his moment in the shine as across the line comes Simeon Moldeclef to win for Sim Racing Norway. Second will be Sandra Island just in the background. And third in class will be David Gill. There's Lewis McLevy already finished up on the hill where Sim Racing Norway seem to be arranging a team photograph by the looks of things. But Lydia Rosa coming second in the rookies. Great build up for her. But, you know, what a drive by Scott Mokes. He will possibly get a bit of a telling off in the situation with Kim Andre Borkland. Who knows? We'll see whether it gets appealed. But apart from that, it was a flawless drive. Gordon Howe comes across the line fifth in the AM category.
I mean, that was a super close finish there in the pros between Scott Mokes and Dean Powell. I mean, Scott had the advantage of them extra tyre wear on there, but you know, I mean, Dean defended for his life. Was not going to be an easy pass for Scott to make, and I think the telling end was them tyres in the end game. Scott being able to just break that little bit later going into Legumes in turn number 7 after the Camel Straight, giving him that slight edge coming around them corners, and unfortunately Dean had to yield that position. But great racing between the front of the pro field. Bit of a round out from the Pro-Am with Michael, and a great win for Simeon Moldeclef and Lewis as well. But let's have a look through the race results. So in first place, our Pro-Am driver Michael Hoopla, 13.9 seconds ahead of Scott Mokes, who won that epic battle that we were watching on screen for the pro field in second. Dean Powell in third, Aaron Powell in fourth, Kim Andre Borkland in fifth. Alexander Scorette coming second in the Pro-Am field, and Patrick Thompson in third in seventh. Farius Germantis in eighth, Simeon Moldeclef top am in ninth, so a great top 10 finish for him. Casper Tunstall in 10th, Sander Island in 11th, and David Gill in 12th, third in the AM category. Bruce Fowler in 13th, Frederick Goldberg 14th, Steve Pierce, Jacob Berens, Gordon Haig, and John Chester to round out your top 18. In 19, we've got Darren Doxty, 20th, Jimmy Vark, Lewis McCaverley, top of the AMs there in 21st, and a great second place from Lydia Rossa, making up from the disappointment of the Nords last time out. So a great race from Lydia there. In 23rd, Daniel Slater, Tom Bingham in 24th, Hendrik Harrison 25th, Victor Lind second in the rookie class, third in the rookie class in 26th, Nigel Stock 27th, Paul Joseph Clist rounding out the top 28 positions. 29th was Matthew Gerard. Luckily managed to keep that fast repair for blowing an engine that we saw earlier on in the race. Mad Sayan 30th, Thomas Cope. These are all our non-finishers in 31st. Nikolai Frayne, a big shout out to him. It's unfortunate he had some hardware failures that really put paid, but certainly showed his pace here today at Spa. And Hankon Jørgensen rounding out your grid of 33 drivers. I mean, Dave, what a race. And let's just get straight into some interviews, and I'll let you pick the first one.
Yeah, and the first one has to be with the overall race winner and Pro-Am winner, Michael Hooper. Michael, hello. What a race for yourself. And, well, the strategy just worked perfectly for you.
Yeah, I think I was a bit worried because Scott on the last stint was a tiny bit faster than me. But I think he took tires because his were dead, and I came into the pits with like 54% left on the lowest tire, and I knew I was good because Suzuka 10 hours in the Porsche, we drove the tires down to 25% and they were still good. So yeah, it was awesome. It was really awesome to win this. So yeah.
Yeah, and obviously you weren't right at the very front in the second half of the first hour. You know, Patrick took a little less fuel and then got involved in an incident, but then you had Alex Scorette in there as well. So it was really close until that final pit stop where, you know, we thought it was going to be Scott out in front, and then all of a sudden, did you really think you were going to come out in the lead and that far in the lead of the whole race, never mind the class?
No, to be honest, I thought Scott would not take tires and be just like 7-8 seconds ahead of me, and then I was looking forward to see what the pace was. But yeah, that was lucky that he took tires. The lap 26 incident, yeah, one for the replays. Me just turning the wheels left, right, center to avoid both cars. That was a Code Brown moment for sure.
Yeah, these 2-hour races, obviously, Spa, a great circuit, but still needing your concentration, just like the Nordschleife, and you kept your nose clean throughout the race. But we're not going to hold everybody back too much longer. So congratulations on your win, on the win in the class as well. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, I want to thank you, the administrators of this league, for setting this up. I think you've been very good at handling all issues that have crept up, which is kind of normal for this league. So thank you all for organizing and for providing us with good racing environment.
Yeah, we can. I think I can certainly throw that at Andy and Tom more than myself, but certainly thank you very much for passing on that. Thank you yourself, and we'll see you next time out, which will be in about 2 weeks' time, I believe.
Yeah, see you then.
There was Michael Hoopla. Yes, obviously
Yeah.
winning overall and winning the Pro-Ams. But let's get straight on and let's get our very own Scotty Mokes into the channel. Scott, welcome to the channel. I mean, what a grandstand finish. You were well out in lead, went in for the second stint and decided to take tyres. Luckily, it paid off right at the end, but it was a close call.
Yeah, I do regret taking tyres. It would have been a little bit easier. Yeah, it worked out in the end. Unfortunate I made that decision, but yeah, it worked out. But yeah, I do want to say straight away to Kim, so sorry. And that's not the way I like to drive. But yeah, I will hopefully see him protest that.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, obviously, you certainly showed your pace. I mean, if we go back to the very start of the race, Nikolai Frayne, and we're watching on screen now, you pretty much just stuck behind him to like glue to save a bit of fuel. And then you did exactly the same, fortunate for the second stint of Kim Andre Borkland. You literally just stuck to the back end of him to be able to do, which gave you that opportunity to make the decision to get tyres. Was that always your strategy, to not lead the race and just make sure you're stuck behind the car to save that fuel?
Not really. It kind of forced my decision straight from lap one. So yeah, I was behind Nikolai, saving fuel and tyres, and then hit for fuel, as he said, and come out straight behind Kim and managed to do the same, which should have changed my decision of taking tyres. I should have gone back to my original plan and not taking tyres. But yeah, it was a good race.
Yeah, it certainly was. It certainly was a grandstand finish right to the end. It's a pity. I think both you and Aaron unfortunately tagged Kim, but there was certainly 4 of you in that race, and it was close to call. I would have given you the advantage having the fresher tyres between the 4, but super competitive. And Dean showed, just how hard it is to pass around this track. Well-worn tyres, you with a lot fresher tyres. And it was only telling right at the end where you sort of outbraked him going down the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, I was just trying to calculate the previous laps of how much draft and how much run I would get on there. And I did try and lift off to try and make it seem like I didn't have that much of a gain, and then saved it for that one run up the back straight. I
mean, for me, it was just amazing. It was just like that last lap grandstand finish between the 2 of you. And luckily, it came off for you in this race. It could have been the other side of it, taking them tyres. But congratulations on your first race win in the Performance GT3 League. Long time coming, second out in the Nords, first now. Real crest of a wave that you're going on, and hopefully you can take it into the second half of the season. So congratulations to you. But before we let you go and try and get on to a few more interviews, would you like to give a shout out to anyone, Scott?
Yeah, obviously shout out to you and David for commentating. I will enjoy watching this one back. Yes, shout out to Performance Link and the teammates. I haven't yet been able to see how they got on. But yeah, it'd be definitely good to watch it back. And also thank you to Haley for being a mate here on this one. That was much needed.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much, Scott, and good luck out. Have a 2-week break now before the next round, mate.
I will do.
There was Scott Mokes, obviously the winner in the very tightly contested pro field. Who you got stood by, Dave?
I think I'm not 100% sure. I think this is Lewis, our
Yes, it
rookie
is.
winner. I always get a little careful with the Discord name. So
Yeah.
Lewis leading the way in a close rookie battle, really. You know, all five of you there in the championship, all five of you in the race, but your strategy worked and you came out on top.
Uh, yeah, I think it was a very simple strategy tonight. I didn't take any tires, I just took fuel. I think that's what most of the people done. But yeah, it was a very good. It was quite a quiet race for me until the end. Obviously, having that wee crash, 2 laps to go. But other than that, it was all right.
Well, if you hadn't mentioned that to us, we wouldn't have known about it because I don't think we saw you have a crash. So
But
yeah, we'll make sure that one comes up on the pit stop in the midweek because we didn't know about that one. But yeah, it worked perfectly for you. But obviously, Matthew not having the best of races, finishing I think fifth in class. Paul, who won last time out, fourth in class, and Lydia and Victor up on the podium with you. It's really going to close that championship point gap.
yeah, I actually don't know the point situation. I've still not figured out how the points work yet, so I don't know if I'm leading or if I went up to second.
Yeah, it is. Well, if you're not used to drop scores, it is really hard to put it in. But is this sort of your first kind of endurance race with strategy and fuel, or have you done sort of the iRacing officials before?
I've done 24-hour races before. I've done Spa and Le Mans, so I sort of had an idea of how it's going to work strategy-wise. But
Yeah, we've obviously got another one coming up. You're going to be looking forward to that one, I guess, now after this result.
what track is it?
Le Mans.
Come on.
Le Mans. Oh yeah, no, I love Le Mans. It's such a good track. It's fun as well. Just you can get an overtake done there, which is good.
Yeah, and just so we can obviously let our European drivers finally get off to bed because it is quite a late one for them. Congratulations on your win. And is there anybody you would
Yeah.
like to give a shout out to on what has been a really good day for sim racing Norway?
Just yeah, SRN. Obviously getting me into the league, and I'm actually enjoying racing. So just shout out to them.
Yeah, and thank you. And we will see you in a couple of weeks for the next round. At least you can have a bit of a break now.
You certainly can do. But there was Lewis there on top. But we can't go without getting our top AM driver. We got Simeon Modclev in the box with us. Simeon, welcome to the commentary box. A great race from you, and overall a great race for sim race in Norway. Saw a lot of tactics between the team and the teammates out there. I mean, it was great seeing that. But obviously, just take us through your aspect of the race.
Yeah, no, my start was pretty bad. I don't know what happened with Steve. He just braked on a straight, so I lost the positions to my other teammates. But it turned out great in case of the long run because I saved so much fuel in that first stint. So yeah, I had to use put in less fuel in the next pit stop, so that worked out quite well.
I mean, that's one of the big things about this strategy. We've got the format A, the two 30-minute sprint races. We've got the hour long. There's just one sort of pit stay. But this throws a cat amongst the pigeons, this 2-hour race. There's so many different strategies that you can do. And certainly, like you said, your first stint wasn't the best. We did see you dropping off the rest of your teammates. But then by the end of it, you were out front. And that was probably a lot down to your strategy in the pits.
Yeah, we used the same pit strategy. We pitted 71 liters to begin with. The plan was to pit 72 liters both times, but I used less fuel, so yeah, put in less, so that worked out with a shorter pit stop in the second one.
Yeah, it definitely is. And from, like me and Dave were saying, Sim Racing Norway had a super strong performance here tonight at Spa. It's got to be good to be part of the team where you're all talking to each other and obviously egging each one of you on to do well. Was you getting a lot of support from the team from possibly winning at the end of the second stint?
Yeah, I was kind of cheering on Sander because he was trying to get past Gil, I think it was, to get the P2. So yeah, but it was unfortunate for Kim as well in the last one. But yeah, we were cheering each other actually during the race.
Yeah, definitely was unfortunate for Kim, but obviously not for you getting your first race win in that AM class here. And a vital one to get with the bigger points on offer for this round. So congratulations on your race win here at Spa. 2 weeks off now before we return to Fiji. And that's going to be an awesome track. Are you looking forward to that one?
Yeah, the Fuji track is a quite fun one. I haven't done it in GT3s. I only drove the Porsche Cup on it once, but yeah, it looks like a fun track.
You got 2 weeks worth of practice in anyone, but thanks for joining us in the box and congratulations again on your AM win. Before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just the SRN team to help putting up sessions and get the practice in.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations again, Simeon, and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. So there was Simeon there, our AM winner. So we've managed to speak to all of the winners here tonight at Spa, Dave. It's been a cracking race and really one for the strategists in the team and to see who came out on top.
Yeah, it's been a strategic race throughout, and it'll be interesting to see when we get to Le Mans. But we will be back to the sprint races of half an hour and an hour for the next 5 events. So the drivers will have to reevaluate how they're racing and go back to the sprint format. So that'll be interesting to see how they get on.
I certainly will do. And our next round is on the 4th of December at Fuji International Speedway. That's the Format A. 11th of December we go to Suzuka Circuit for the hour-long race, and then we end the trio on the 18th of December at Daytona, and that will be a night race, as pretty much it always is in an official. So some really good rounds to look forward to. But you know, from myself here at Spa, and a big thank you to our sponsors, our main sponsors, Performance Link, Green Future Technology, and Thomas Cope in TC Simography, as well as STK Gaming and Extreme Scoring for everything they do to make this league easier. From myself, Andy Thompson, from Dave Whitehouse alongside me, and the wonderful Lewis Aurora in our production box, we will sign off for 2 weeks, but we'll be back with a bang in Fiji International Speedway on the 4th of December. But from Spa tonight, good night.